morning. This is the FY15 Nashoba Regional School District Budget Workshop meeting. It is February 1st. Calling the meeting to order at 8:39. As I mentioned, there are agendas and budget copies in the back table if anybody here is interested in having a copy to follow along with. And our first item on the agenda is an overview of the budget. Our Superintendent Michael Wood.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is the same budget that our audiences saw and heard on Tuesday night. It's the proposed budget from the administration to the school committee for their discussion and debate. The total budget is a bit of a milestone in that it is over $50 million at $50,516,022. But it's a 3.72% increase, and certainly as some of the labels that are given budgets, it's for the most part a level services budget with some initiatives that have been added to address some critical needs that we've identified over the last two to 3 years that we just have to address in order to keep going with the successes that we've had. We are able to provide some relief in the amount of $3,636,067, and certainly this provides a reduction for what becomes our net budget for $46,879,955, or just slightly over 4%. And again, if you have been reading any of the local media, you know that surrounding us, we're certainly on the lower end for requests for budgets. The purpose of today is for the site administrators to talk to you directly and share with you their vision and their particular needs for running their particular departments or sites, schools. But here you have an overview of where the changes are in terms of 1 year from last year voted budget to this year's proposed budget so far. As you can see, the obvious places are in salaries. We're bringing forward the existing personnel forward, has a net change of 1.5%. Special education, which we'll talk about a little bit later, at 32.5%, but with very specific and really almost fixed costs that we can't address through a cut. Transportation has some smaller increases for the general population, but our special education population, and as the public knows, and certainly the school committee knows, we've had a significant change this year, and so there's a slight increase there. Facilities this is the total department, or excuse me, non-salary department. So that's seeing $167,000, and Bill is here today to go into more detail on that. But we see some reductions as well. Our debt service is going down. Our charter school is going down. Our other system-wide is going down in terms of how we've budgeted. There are some slight reductions as well, but the majority of that is a change in how we're budgeting for our copier costs and the lease that we have for that. And so you see the majority of that change in the site-based funds increases in terms of that 17.57%, and George will go into more detail about that. But that's the breakdown. So the entire increase is $1.869 million. $350,000, and today is really your opportunity to dig in deep with our administrators that are here and to talk directly with them as to why certain proposals have been made and what the need is. Overall, as I said, this is a level services budget. For the most part, we believe we provide a very good service, high quality service to our communities in terms of the quality of our educators, the space and supplies and equipment that's necessary to produce the quality of learning that takes place here. We are pushing our STEM investments and see a very significant increase there in teaching and learning, and I'll talk about those later, as well as response to intervention. And we definitely see a need there to address how we're relating to our students and how we're being able to meet their needs so they're ready to be in the classrooms and focus on learning. And then, in general, our technology focus is shifting in that we're moving, as we've been moving, towards having more technology in the hands of our students and educators, because that's what we see as getting the most benefit for students to engage and to construct new knowledge. So the next on our agenda is George King, and he's going to talk about system-wide and the technology budgets.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, so the first category of the budget that we talk about every year in the top of the sheet is the insurance and benefits, and this mainly supports our employee benefits and our district-wide insurance programs. And this is obviously a somewhat expensive part of our budget that does not have a lot of issues that we can control in it. One thing we can never control is our assessment to the Worcester County retirement system. And for the last several years, this has been going up by relatively substantial amounts each year. Worcester County retirement is the system that our non-professionally certified employees have their retirement, and we pay an assessment to them. That is based essentially on other member towns and districts and their actuarial studies. So I assume, I haven't seen any details on it yet, that their actuarial study showed some investment gains the last couple of years with the stock market going up, which then allows us to make our contribution go down. So for the first time in several years, we actually have a decrease. It's not huge, but it's 5% in that category, and that's less than we anticipated. So that's a little bit of good news in this area of the budget that we don't normally have not been getting. Workers' compensation insurance, that's an estimate at this point that we're going to increase at $10,000. Just generally, our overall experience in workers' compensation has been very, very good over the years. So since I've been here, I've seen it be very good. Just due to our happenstance, circumstances that you can't always control. Our last year has been a little bit not as good. So my concern there is we have a little bit of exposure in the insurance premium there, so we'll have to see what happens there. That's our best bet, but we really won't know that for sure.
I have a question. What percentage of our budget is in the direction of the retirement?
Excuse me?
How much percentage of the budget?
Funding retirement.
Oh, it'd be about 1.5%
Yeah,
for the actual funding of the retirement system. It's $729,000. It's the second, third line down there in that.
Is there also a health insurance for retirees as well?
That's correct. That's another portion we'll be getting to.
So
Yeah.
that's $1.5 million?
Yep. So, just to further that slightly, remember, teacher retirement is not paid for by the district, so that's an advantage we get. Teachers' retirement is paid for by the state. And of course, the employees themselves too. I mean, there's employee contributions to all these, Worcester County and the teacher retirement system. But the differences are made up. And a lot of the differences, if you look at their actuarial studies, both Worcester County retirement and the state teachers retirement, a lot of the funding that's being put in by the government is for previous, it's for their deficit that they're trying to make up, their unfunded liability they're trying to make up between now and 2030, I think it is now, when they have to have it totally paid off by. Health insurance is going up. We estimate the total cost of health insurance to increase 8 to 10%. However, our funding of it only has to go up 5% because we have a bit of a surplus this year due to some experience and some managing of it over the last couple of years. So we can provide for that 8 to 10% increase that we are anticipating with a 5% increase in the budget. So that's a good thing for us this year. That won't be available next year, of course, but overall that 8 to 10% is obviously a little frustrating, but at the same point there is a certain percent, some people estimate up to 3% built into costs this year just for the Affordable Care Act type things alone. So that being the case, if we can keep it in that range, which I have every reason to believe we can, I'm pretty confident that would be our max range. we should be in pretty good shape there. So again, with many municipal and district budgets, this of course is an area that, you know, is very taxing, no pun intended, to the overall budget. And I think that we've done a pretty good job of managing this over the last few years to keep it not from being a true budget buster. A dental insurance increase, and I think I'll just add too, one of the other reasons why I think we've been able to manage this line item is our employees do pay 30%, which is, you know, which is certainly reasonable if you look at other districts and municipalities.
On the dental or?
Well, dental is 50-50. Our dental insurance is 50-50. Health insurance is 70-30, but dental insurance is 50-50. So our employees do pick up a reasonable share of these premiums, which certainly helps us control the bottom line cost.
Is that true when they're retired as well?
Yeah, 50-50 in retirement too. Good question, yes. They retired, when you retire, you go to a 50-50 cost, both on dental and health insurance.
Both?
Yes, so retiree health insurance is paid at 50-50. The dental insurance increase is about 7%. And the only other note I would make about the entire insurance is that, as we discussed a little bit when we had the presentation, and right now we have no provision for OPEB funding in here. That's the other post-employment retirement benefits. In other words, essentially we pay as you go for the cost of our retiree health insurance. We're required to give health insurance to retirees. And we pay $830,000 a year right now in this budget proposed, at least, for retiree health insurance. That, you know, that's current year funds being paid for people who no longer work for us. In other words, you know, so that's what the OPEB funding is eventually designed. The idea, the concept of it is designed to alleviate, so that theoretically, when someone retired from the district, if you are fully funded on an OPEB basis, everybody, that health insurance will be paid for forever. So if I retire at 65, the district will have enough money set aside to pay for my health insurance the rest of the way.
So do you invest that?
Well, we would if in fact we have funding, but we
Right.
have no funding. But theoretically, again, and very few places have done it. It would be just like the retirement system, that you would be funding it and you know, building it up. Because the idea, like I say, about the retirement system is, as they're under law, and they have been for almost 30 years now, they're supposed to have it paid off. It was originally 2028, it either moved up to 2030 or 2033 or 2038, I can't remember exactly where. It might be 2038 now, but the idea being they have a funding schedule, so the retirement systems are fully paid up by that particular date. So again, theoretically, the district would be putting in all the money while I worked here, so as soon as I left, everything, all the money from my retirement would be there. The same, you know, desire is there for health insurance. I think it's fair to say it'll be a long time before, you know, those things are fully funded. So that's pretty much the recap of the insurance and benefits area, and I can move on unless there's any other questions.
What does OPEB stand for?
Other post-employment benefits.
We should really look at that.
Well, we have talked about it, maybe it was right before you came over,
Yeah,
we had a
it was.
presentation, we have to have an audit every 2 years.
Right.
Which is carried, we have to have a, you know, an evaluation every 2 years, rather, which is carried in our audit, and we do need to look at it. But it's something we really need to talk about.
We need to get more, yeah, I think people need to know how important it is to avoid, you're gonna have a big bubble of people graduating, retiring, right? You're gonna have a big bubble of people retiring in the next 10 years, I would think, right?
I think we're gonna be pretty even.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
But for an offset,
Yeah, I understand the purpose of it. Obviously, people think that it's an important thing, so I agree we should continue to focus on it, but.
because it's not gonna go away, you're never gonna not be able to give retiree benefits.
No, but we have been paying as we go for,
But you're paying today's dollar every year.
well, you'd still be paying
Paying
today's
today's
dollar,
dollar.
you just would simply be investing it, so it's.
Right,
available to you.
right, so it'd help offset some of that, but anyway, I just
Yeah.
think that that's something to
Yep.
look into.
So the total for that, the change in this insurance and benefits is, it's an increase of about 4%.
Yes.
Is
Which-
that, just looking back at the other previous years that are listed here, is that a typical increase?
No, I think for the, I mean, it does change from year to year, but for the most part, I think it's a lower than normal increase.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, a couple questions. One, could you speak more to what you're doing internally to manage health costs? Two, what's the present deficit of the OPEB, and what would it take on an annualized basis to get that back up to speed, and how long would it take so that you are in compliance of that? Three, are you doing anything to address the supplemental retirement plan that is offered in terms of managing costs within that, and moving to a more single or less multi-vendor down to a single vendor environment and economies of scale there?
Trying to remember those things I got taken going backwards. Well, 1 and 3 are kind
Managing
of...
costs within the healthcare,
Yeah, no,
what are you
no.
doing?
Managing costs is something that we've done over a number of years. We've changed our plan from a couple of different, to a different provider. We've changed our co-pays and that type of thing. And just last year, we changed our retirement plan, as you stated. We've always pretty much been with a one plan provider. We haven't ever been in a situation where we were multi-vendors. We changed our Medicare supplement plan a year ago to a less expensive plan, and with Blue Cross, that we had a plan with a different, again, outside provider that had been around for years, that we switched and put everybody under Blue Cross. It's still a good plan. It has Medicaid D wraparound plan. So that's how we've managed it, by tweaking our plans over the years. And
Are you offering a high deductible health insurance plan with the ability to save for retiree health?
can you just clarify that question? We have essentially 2 retiree plans for people on Medicare. We have a Medicare
No,
supplement
for
plan.
present employees. So a present employee is offered a high deductible health insurance plan, and they can have a flex spending account. They have a retiree healthcare account where they can contribute dollars post-tax now and grow for themselves to be used for retiree healthcare.
Yes, we have. We do not have a high deductible plan. We do have a flex spending accounts.
And so, in walking through the hallway, I noticed there was a sheet of paper offering the various vendors of the supplemental retirement plan. So I noticed 11 or 12 various investment providers. So you're saying you folks remit to one
No.
provider?
I think that you must be talking about our 403B tax shelter annuity plans.
Yes, sir.
That we don't provide for that at all. That's all individual employee money.
Sure, but you guys are offering it to the district, right?
It's actually a contract technically between the individual and the company. We coordinate it through a provider, where we send the money to a provider and they send it out to the individual companies. But it's truly an individual investment.
Sure. But ultimately, you folks have fiduciary responsibility over that.
No.
No.
Nope. It's like you were investing in a mutual fund, so it's essentially a 401k type of thing. We're not a custodian of the money, and we do not supplement the money in any way. We simply are.
So there's no cost to the district on your behalf?
That's correct.
We have 5 hours of things to get through. If we
Yeah.
could-
Just the one other question, how much is your, I'm sorry, Terry Feeling from Bolton, annual required contribution for the OPEB?
Oh, I don't have that off the top of my head. It's around $2 million, I believe, but I certainly can get we have the audit, it was just done, the evaluation was just done, the
Around
actuarial
2 million.
study. Then we send it to all the towns, but we'd be happy to send it to you again.
Okay, thank you.
So if we can just move on now to the system-wide costs. Again, I think things are looking pretty good here. Get back to where I was. Our contracted services line items were reduced by about $25,000 this year. Combination of reasons for that. We went back out, as you know, a year ago and got bids on our audit, so we got a little bit less money for our audit. And there was one other, I should have to remind myself of, as to why that is down. But that has been reduced, as I say, $25,000. The other area, it's the reduction of our advertising. We continue to use more and more online advertising sites, which are less expensive than print sites that we used to use. So both those areas have shown a decent reduction now, for $25,000 reduction. There's a small increase in transportation. It's just over 2%, which is, I think, very good, given the cost of fuel and that type of thing. Our contracts have been very competitive with our transportation provider. We're in the second year of a 2-year contract with this number. We do have options for years 3 and 4, so that's something that should probably stay under control in the next few years. You see, there is a reduction in the copier budget line item, but that's not a true reduction. It's essentially a level fund district-wide. We're simply, the way the new copier contract works, we pay for it slightly differently. So the individual costs of toner, which is really the ongoing cost of the operational cost, is now shifted out into a new line item in each of the school budgets. This just gives a little bit more local oversight and responsibility as to the use of that material. We feel it will be a little bit better cost control where they can have a little bit more direct experience of what they're paying for as opposed to coming from a central budget. This wasn't possible in the past because of the way the payments were made. So that's why we did that, and that's why. So the number you see there is just simply for the lease of our 27 pieces of equipment district-wide. The rest is in the schools now. And that's same with general office supplies. That you see that number is going down a bit too. The reason that number is going down is the cost of paper is also being all the paper district-wide, all the copy paper, all the paper district-wide used to be in the central account. That's also being transferred out to the site-based account again, so they're able to manage their cost and use of those particular items. We have included a salary reserve line item of about 1% of our total budget this year. We are in negotiations here. We do not know, obviously, exactly what our salary costs will be next year until our contracts are settled. So this is some money that's been put aside for the purposes of the salary reserve.
George, can I just ask a question on
Sure.
the copier budget and the paper office supplies budget? Presumably we're going more paperless every day.
We're trying.
That, is the shift a level shift? Or are
Right
we
now it's a
actually
level shift. We took last year's cost at level and we took it by their use and put it out to the schools in this budget as based on their historical use at level
Okay.
funded.
Okay, thank you.
But just doing some things internally, we're going to protect that line item internally so that we can see for the first year and calibrate whether that's too much, too little, and that won't be available to be spent elsewhere, so to speak. So if we have excess, we'll have it.
We'll use it next year, is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll have it, and we'll close out to our free cash or whatever.
Okay.
We're not saying whatever you save here, you can spend somewhere else this year. We want to make sure that it is the right number. We're still trying to calibrate it to make sure we're right, but we estimated what we think the cost of each cost center will be and shifted it out that way at level funding. Theoretically, again, what you say is true. We should be using less and less print and go more and more paperless. And that's been our goal. It is a cultural change in many areas. And some of the things we do, obviously, like worksheets in classrooms and stuff, you can't go paperless. I think there are other things we do that can go paperless. And through our new system, our new copier system, which works pretty well with both Google Docs, which we use all the time, and the scanning system on there. There are a lot of places with our Google sites that I think we should be able to, PDF things and make them available in that regard. And we're working towards that. It's truly a
Work in progress.
Work in progress. It's more work than I thought it would be, but it is. But that's our goal.
Thanks.
Just a couple other comments about the essential services lines. This charter school tuition, as Michael pointed out on the original slide, is down a bit. Again, that's somewhat of an estimate, but as of right now, it looks like our charter school going out population has stabilized based on preliminary information we have from the state.
Is that the 475?
That's the 475. Yeah.
So we have 475,000 a year
Yeah,
going out to charter
that's
schools.
correct. Yeah, for about 38 kids.
So at some point, and maybe we touch, some of the media outlets in the towns, people need to understand that loss. I mean, if you make a choice, that's your choice to make, but I think people need to understand the impact that school choicing out of the district has on the budget. And I'm not sure
That's not
everyone
school
gets
choice
that.
either. That's charter.
No, that's charter,
Charter
and then there's
school,
school choice on
Right,
top of
right.
it. But so together, that's almost $1 million a year
Yep.
that leaves the district because people want to send their kids to another
Correct.
school. Okay, that's that's a big number. And we gotta figure out a way maybe to do some type of internal communication to our communities.
We certainly have tried that over the years. One of the biggest challenges is we go through this every year, and when we get the list, we drill it down, make sure every kid we're being charged for is something we should be being charged for. And we got $30,000 or $40,000 back last year that we were being charged for kids that we didn't know. So we have audited it pretty good. And we really
I'm not worried about you.
No, I know, but the point I want to point. But one thing I learned through those audits is that more than half of these students we've never had. So they're not kids leaving our district. We've never had them. These are kids who just happen to live in Bolton, Stowe, and Lancaster, and their families have made a decision for them to either go to an out-of-district school or a charter school, and we had to pay for them by virtue of the fact that they live here, even though they've never attended our system.
So I still think there's an opportunity there, because that doesn't even include, I mean, that has nothing to do with kids whose parents decide to send them to private school.
Nope, nothing to do with that.
No.
I still think I mean, I'd like to take a look at that. I mean, not for any other reason than to build an awareness.
We tried to do that, and I think we continue to try to do
Well,
that.
that's because you're not marketing people.
Well, DESE is very protective of the rights of the school choice program and the charter program, to the point where we're not even supposed to survey parents and ask
You
them
don't,
their
yeah, you don't
choices.
have to, I think just making it, just elevating the awareness. I think I think that $1 million is a quiet little drain from the budget that's
Absolutely.
really significant.
Definitely.
Definitely.
So it's 38 students for charter and how many for school choice?
80.
How many?
80.
And why is it why is the district responsible for that?
State law.
State law.
State law, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is why a student that's going out for school choice is what, $5,000?
Yes.
And a charter school student is 12?
Charter school student is our full per pupil with a slight reimbursement for facilities costs. School choice is capped at $5,000 except for special education costs, which are built on top of the $5,000 under the circuit breaker formula. So the school choice law was originally put in probably about 30 years ago. Did have full per pupil also at that particular time, but it was amended afterwards to cap it at $5,000 because of the inequity it was causing amongst districts. But charter school, when it went in, well, whenever it was, 15 years ago or so, went for full per pupil, and it still is full per pupil. So that's why, we have twice as many school choice, but the costs are virtually the same. The total aggregate cost.
It doesn't make sense, does it? I mean,
Well, I mean, the idea, I think, I don't think it makes sense personally, but I think the idea is, the other school districts and school choice districts are established districts, adding, as we've talked here, adding students somewhat in the margin, so therefore they don't get paid
Right.
before. Where the charter schools are often, not so much right now, but when they started out, were brand new, and they, they needed the full per pupil cost to survive in their estimation. It's a flawed formula because, of course, when we lose a kid, we don't lose virtually any cost, and we're paying that full per pupil.
right,
I mean,
right.
so that's why it's flawed.
Yes.
Do we have any kids coming into our district that offsets this?
Sure, we can talk about that.
Oh, God.
We talked about that a lot.
We can talk about that, yeah.
You got 50 going out, you got 50,
We had about 200 coming in at this
We
time.
have a lot more coming in than we do going out.
So we get paid for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then
And you'll see that.
I guess doesn't make.
We get paid at the 5K rate or the 12K rate?
5, because we're not charter.
When do we charter?
Okay, so that's pretty much the cost, the central office, the district-wide cost. The only other one last comment I'll make, the salary reduction of the district treasurer is because of the change we made last year to the employees, so they just moved the employee line items.
So we added a salary reserve number for
Yep.
this year. Is that in anticipation of the growth?
No, that's specifically for, because we're
Protection.
in contract negotiations.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, this lastly, I'll talk a little bit about our technology department budget, which is also pretty close this year to, well, it's actually a little below level funded actually. We've done a good job getting reductions in both our contracted services and licensing department. That goes credit to Suchi, our technology manager, director. he's negotiating some contracts with some of our providers, mainly our internet service provider, that allows us to have better service now at less cost as the technology increases. The licensing is based on several different factors, but it does end up with a small decrease. Our equipment lease is, as you know, this is the area we put money in each year for the purposes of purchasing computer hardware, replacement hardware, both for our district systems and the very devices that go into the students' hands. It's an $80,000 line item this year that is that's the expiring lease, and that is what's being replaced at a level funded. We estimate the total value of the replacement hardware to be somewhere in the $220,000 to $225,000 range. The only other issue I think I'd like to point out in technology is that as we continue to reduce the cost of our telephones, which makes sense, I think, but over the years, this is from the first time I was here in 2005, I think this budget's been cut in half. And a lot of that is done due to the work they've done to bring us over to the voice over IP system that we presently use and that type of thing. So I think these costs get us a lot, and they appear to be well under control in our technology area. So that's a general overview. If anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them about technology.
So in summary on that line item, we see a decrease, and that's largely because we've had a lot of people bringing their own devices.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not. No, nothing to do with
Okay.
that. It has to
Okay.
do mainly because we just contract negotiation in terms of our contracted services, such as our internet service provider. We pay less for our internet right now, the Comcast, and because of some of the licensing issues, we've either our licensing with Microsoft is less than it was last year through negotiations. So that's where the licensing software licensing line item decreased. So those are the two lines that decreased: essentially the software licensing and the contracted services.
Any other questions for George? All right, Bill, you're up.
Okay.
Explain to them how to use this.
Okay. Good morning. Page down. So in reviewing my slides, I've realized they are a little heavy. So I'm going to try to maintain a 50,000-foot view, and I'm happy to drill down as you have questions and you'd like a little more detail on it. The projects that we've done and the projects that I'm presenting, I'm trying to keep grounded in our building's best practices, which is through our security, through our custodial operations, through our preventive maintenance, with an eye on energy efficiency and, as always, customer service. Wow. Okay, so we start here, 2015 goals. So going forward is going to be the completion of the high school track and field project. This would be the phase 2. If you've driven around the back of the high school anytime recently, you'll see that there are 2 buildings back there. One of them is the old storage garage that's been expanded some, as well as renovated, and that gives us some additional space. It's been broken up into 7 different usable areas so that we can help with some of our athletics and the other events in storage. There's also a new concessions building there. That is slated for completion in April of 2014, in time for the athletic season coming up. It'll have the men's room, the ladies' room, and the concessions area. We have some signage coming in, and once the weather breaks, that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of the outside work happening. This project was brought in-house. I decided we're going to do the engineering, design, construction all in-house. So hopefully at the end of the project, we'll be able to see some cost savings by keeping that here. We're going to continue our review of building systems and maintenance procedures. With any good program, we need to stay proactive rather than being reactive, and that's something that I'm trying to instill in the staff we have and in the maintenance procedures we have. By staying proactive, we do save in cost. It's much cheaper to repair, fix something before it breaks than to try to fully replace it after. And I think we've done pretty good job this year of keeping that in-house. We continue our training in in-house maintenance staff. We've done some real selective hiring recently and tried to keep people on our staff in the facilities department that are multi-talented, that they not only are a plumber, but they're an HVAC tech. Not only are they an electrician, but they can do HVAC, they can do sheet metal. So this gives us a very rounded approach to what we can do in-house. And again, at the end of the day, save some money. And we can respond faster for fire alarms, for sheet metal work, for electrical. We can do this in-house. We're going to continue with our proactive preventive maintenance program. Again, we want to stay preventative rather than reactive on this, and I think the guys have been doing a good job staying ahead of some of the systems. Complete our capital projects. We have a fairly aggressive 2014 and 2015 capital and scheduled maintenance projects. We try to stay ahead of that and bring them in on time, on cost, hopefully under budget if we can. Enhance the building security. 2014 and going into 2015, we've seen an added focus on building security, both in our systems we have and in the procedures that we maintain in the buildings, how we come and go through the doors, and what we do after hours in the school. So we're going to continue on that. It's going to be part of some cameras, some electric card swipe systems that we have in-house, some keys, and then procedures. We try to continue, yes?
Sorry,
No problem.
where does that appear,
Yeah.
those upgrades?
We'll hit those, a lot of them are under the scheduled maintenance line item for each one of the buildings, and I have a little breakdown of that. And we try to keep a high level of customer service. You know, we do have a lot of community events going on afterwards, and, you know, the kids at the end of the day are our customers in the building as well as the staff, so we try to promote good customer service as well as high level of custodial maintenance. It is flu season, so we want to keep things clean and germ-free. And enhance our safety procedures and equipment. It's critical when you're doing any type of construction or building management that we maintain safety. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so just to jump backwards of our FY14 capital projects, things that we've completed, and I'll just run quickly through this. We've completed the Emerson well transfer in this building here, which has we picked up the well over in Florence Sawyer, and we're decommissioning the well here at Emerson. We've added some carpet replacement. We've done a phase 1 over at Sawyer, and we're going into a phase 2 in April. We've replaced all the doors, the exterior doors at Florence Sawyer, and that's security also, as well as, you know, they were getting old and we had some problems with them. We've updated an intercom system here at Emerson, which was important for safety, being able to call lockdown or get information to the staff. Hale, we added new smoke detectors. We replaced all the smoke detectors in the building. We did some elevator repairs this year over at Hale, and we've done some building sealing project, the phase 1, where we're trying to reseal the building for energy as well as safety. We have some boiler replacements coming up. It was my intent to try to get them completed before the start of the heating system this year, but in stepping back, trying to find what's the best way to do these and see what's going to be the best option for long term in the district, we're taking a look at maybe doing a fuel conversion, going from oil to maybe a propane. And that way, in the future, we might be able to pick up some cost savings if there's ever a natural gas line that's brought down the street. And it gives us some flexibility going forward over the next 20 years. Once you buy one of these boilers, they're there for a long time. And we're now working on engineering that system. Our scheduled projects, we've rekeyed a majority of the district's buildings. All the exterior locks on the buildings, we tried to change over to a new key. We're looking at, we've added security cameras, we've implemented a keyless entry system, which is our card swipe system, and we're trying to really focus on that rather than people having the old hard metal keys. We're working on repairs of parking lot lighting and the parking lots. We're trying to audit the district's phones, because like George mentioned, we've switched over to a voice over IP platform, but some of our phones are older, and we just want to make sure they're working, and that's critical for safety. And we've upgraded some vehicles, and we've retired some of the old fleet. We maintain our site improvements with plumbing, HVAC, painting, electrical lighting, and that's all done now in-house.
Can I ask you
Yes,
a couple
of
of
course.
questions before you get into this?
Sure.
And I don't want to go off the reservation, so I'm going to try to keep them brief. Why'd you laugh? the boiler replacements, and
Yes.
I would love for Bolton to get natural gas. I don't think it's gonna happen. I have propane, so does half the town. But my question is this, have we ever considered, and I don't wanna go crazy on this, some type of a solar initiative with some of the governmental offsets,
I have,
incentives?
I have looked at it. There are a couple local solar farms. Unfortunately, the technology, to me, looking at what we're going to put into the building, these panels on the roof, this is such a dynamic market right now, and the technology is changing almost weekly. And if
Okay.
you, what I don't want to do is do this large-scale investment and put these huge solar panels on the roof, and then in 3 years, the technology's changed, and we're now stuck with this albatross on the
No, I
roof.
think
So
that's, makes
we
sense.
do keep an eye on it. I do constantly speak with our utilities, with National Grid, with NSTAR, with the different solar groups that are popping up everywhere, these solar farms, and some of the net rebates that can come back. But I
So
haven't-
you are looking at it?
We are, and we discuss it all the time, but we haven't quite found a program yet that really says that's the one, and this is gonna be good for long-term sustainability.
Okay, so I would just encourage, thank you for that.
Yes.
I think it's a responsibility of all of ours from a cost perspective, but also we're a school system, like future, looking into the future and what are we doing? So thank you for that. And before you get into the numbers, and Terry has a question,
I was just gonna say, Terry has a question too, but go ahead.
the cross-training that you're doing and cross-hiring
Yes.
that you're doing, are you seeing a reduction, or are you planning for a reduction in maintenance and
Absolutely.
repairs in the budget?
Yes and no. I'm trying to reduce the outside need of vendors coming in, because that is an expensive option, because we're paying their overhead when they come into the buildings. But on the other side, we have a budget that I'm trying to maintain level and have our in-house staff do more with it.
Right.
And try to really get ahead of the curve.
But you must have to plan for upcoming, unexpected maintenance issues.
Absolutely.
So I
They
just
do
want to
that.
know, when we get to there, can you point out where it is?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Terry?
Yeah, my question had to do with the propane.
Yes.
Recently in the news, there was news about propane availability going down and then costs going up. How does this come into your analysis?
Well, the systems that we have in place, we already negotiated a price that's about $1 and change cheaper than what we currently pay for oil, if this becomes the direction we want to go. Also, the systems that we can put in place run a much higher efficiency, so we would capture a cost savings just on the systems that are in place. And the other environmental side would be, they're a much cleaner burning system. There's probably a couple dozen distributors in the area, so although we'd have a contract with a particular distributor, if we ever did see a problem with service, we could always change.
Service and availability and cost, which is really what I guess they're finding out in the Midwest.
Correct, and we'd be looking at a multi-year contract to try to lock it in and stabilize and keep it, make sure that we have that stability across a few years.
Thank you.
Did I do that one? Did I do that one?
No.
I did it, I'm sorry. No, I did. That was the
You did
Emerson
that
one.
one, you didn't
We
do
did
the
that
one.
one?
We did
We're
this
getting
one.
to the dollars
It's tough
now,
to see
brother.
it. Okay, so some of our 2015 budget highlights, and I just tried to touch on the things that have changed. One of them is snow removal. We increased about 2%, which is $1,700. I see a lot of that in the increase in materials, the salt, sand, as well as the center school coming online. Center school's got kind of a unique design, and it requires a little different approach to snow removal because of the porous pavement, because of some of the environmental features that were incorporated there in the design. So there's a little increase there. Vehicle expenses, we went up about $13,000, and what that really captures is we last year bought a new utility truck within the facilities fleet that allows us to plow, do some landscape, sand, and I transferred that line item out of scheduled maintenance to vehicle expenses, so that's where it captured. It came out of one, went to the other. Heating, fuel, and in vehicle expenses, we do have some vehicle repairs, fuel increases, our fleet's getting a little older here and there, so we've seen a little more repairs, brakes and the like. Heating, fuel, we're keeping fairly even at about 1%, about $4,000 increase, and that really falls into us just working on these systems and try to increase efficiency, not only through maintenance of the systems, but through our management of our scheduling, how and when we turn these systems on and off. Our high school schedule maintenance projects, this one here had that 43% increase, about 157,000, and I have a slide just specifically talking about this because I think this is one we want to focus a little more on. District school scheduled maintenance, and this is the one we talked about. This went down because
Okay.
we are really trying to work on these systems and take away some of that outside reliance, and that does see a cost benefit. Scheduled maintenance, vehicles and scheduled maintenance project, here we had, last year was the 31,000, and that was for the plow truck and some of the other items that we're looking for irrigation. This year, we have a line item of 45,000 captured, and this is for the purchase of a multi-person passenger van that we would be using for athletic events, for academic events, school clubs, things mainly at the high school and some of the other schools that needs to get a small group of kids from point A to point B.
So Bill, we currently use that little gray, don't they use that little green van?
We do. We have a couple small green vans. They're primarily used by the SPED department, and the crossover between the two, it's sometimes difficult to manage, who needs what when. So we're trying to stay a little more dedicated and get away from having to rent a full bus when we only need to move.
Presumably mean cost savings in the bus
Line item, right? I mean,
Yeah, because
That would be the hope.
yeah.
the buses aren't even fully packed in a lot of these
Sometimes you
events.
see these buses with 6 kids on it.
Well, or
driving down the
two.
street, or 2, or
Right.
just the coach. I know I've driven back in the bus before all by myself when I was coaching at Hale.
Well, that's because nobody wanted to sit
Right,
next to you, but
everyone-
beyond that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, you're doing a great job, thank you.
Oh, now I'm gonna leave.
No, you're not.
Okay, so we have our vehicles, and then finally our inspections. We've seen a cost drop here, about $4,000. And again, this is when we do inspections in the building, like normal inspections, they usually find something wrong. And this is our in-house staff able to address, get into it, and not have to utilize outside staff. And this is another area where we've seen a cost benefit from that cross-training. Okay, the high school, this is that line item that had that $157,000 increase, and I wanted to drill down just a little bit on it. So at the high school, we have a scheduled maintenance budget. We don't have a capital budget because the district manages the high school, owns the high school here. So we have an increased awareness and attention to safety, and this is going into, fixing our camera system, adding to our camera system and security, adding shades. This is a 2-year project, trying to get shades in the different classroom windows. Door locks, interior of the building. The kids in the building put a pretty good pounding on the doors. You can imagine 1,000 kids going in and out of doors constantly. So we have a lot of upgrades on those doors to make sure we're secure. Cafeteria tables, we added some last year. We've seen a great impact of kids actually getting into those cafeteria tables and clearing some of the hallways. So we're going to try to keep that going forward. Student lockers, we want to get some additional student lockers in there. And there's an area in the building where we have a plate glass, and we're making a change over to safety glass, which is critical. We want to make sure that the kids are safe if anything happens against one of these windows. We are trying to improve our community experience with better signage. I'm sure if you've gone to the high school, it's not the easiest place to navigate. So we're trying to add signage through the building. I'm working with Martina in the science labs, trying to make sure we get some fume hoods, additional ventilation, and upgrade of some of our electric and plumbing repairs. And then parking lots. We need to do some lines, some signage, some parking lot repairs. It's a lot of traffic in there. Building maintenance, we touched on this, roof repairs, floor and stair, ceiling tile, windows, painting, HVAC, the general things these are items that we do in-house now, and we have a staff that's pretty aggressive on getting on these. So we have in this line item an increase of $157,000. That number plus is a roof replacement initiative over the upper gym lobby. Earlier in this year, rather than just saying, well, that roof seems bad, I went out and had a thermal scan done of the entire roof of the building, and I have a report I'm happy to share and we can discuss it. And it showed a lot of wet areas underneath that. We're going to do some general repairs to fix, but the area over the upper gym is very wet. It's soaked right down through in the insulation, and it leaks in constantly. You can see a lot of stained ceiling tiles, and so this is an area that we do have to get into, and we've estimated that to be about $175,000 repair. and that's a ballasted roof, so that's those roofs with the rubber and then all the rocks on top. So it's about a 30-year-old roof. It's a difficult roof to remove. So that's about $175,000 cost, and that's where the bulk of this increase on this line item comes from.
The gym isn't that it?
Well, it's not the gym.
Gym.
It's the lobby area to the left of the gym that
But it's
connects.
coming into the gym.
Right,
Okay.
right. So it's the lobby area over the music. And
Yes, over the music
the hallway
suite.
over the lockers.
It's working
That
its
area.
way all the way over to the ice.
Once it gets
Exactly.
inside it,
It's in.
like now, we've had very cold days, so the water below the insulation has frozen. And when it warms up, that water thaws, and then the leaks start traveling. So although it's not raining, we see leaks in the ceiling, and that's because it's saturated.
Okay.
And then some baseball and softball field renovations. We need to really get in and add some infill to the fields. We have a pretty substantial infield lip, which is that bump that the outfield is, you know. So, and then install some new clay on the batter's box and some of the other things there. So that will both be for baseball and softball. Then we have just our local schools, Lancaster schools, and you'll see in each Lancaster, Bolton, and Stowe, the first initiative is security. And I think security and how we manage access to the buildings is important, especially where they're community centers and we have a lot of people coming and going. So we're going to be looking at doing some work on our phones, on our cameras, on interior locks. We've done exterior locks, as well as our card access system into the buildings. We've got some clocks in Lancaster that we need to do some repairs on. In Bolton, looking in the bathrooms, trying to get away from as faucets break. We've been changing them over to touchless faucets, and that's been a great initiative by our in-house plumber that he's really grabbed onto and ran with. Try to get away from the kids actually having to touch the faucet. So, it's a cleaner approach. We've got some fencing that we're looking at the Stowe School around the baseball field we put in, and as these kids get bigger, I'm seeing the balls are going much deeper, and a deep fly ball, there's quite a drop-off over there, so we want to make sure we address some of those safety concerns.
Bill,
And, yes,
what are you doing with the nurse's office in Sawyer? How are you expanding? Where are you expanding?
in the nurse's office, right to the left of it, if you're looking
Yeah.
at it, is a storage room.
Right.
And it's a fairly substantial sized storage room, so we're gonna take that partition wall out and slide it down about 5 or 6 feet, rebuild the wall and expand the nurse's office that way. And then just reorganize the
Where's the,
storage room.
where does the storage room stuff go?
It still stays there. The room, instead of being about,
Just an
16
a big,
feet.
yeah.
becomes about, 11 feet or
Okay.
so. So it's a pretty easy move, and we'll do that in-house just by
Great.
sliding the wall.
Thank you.
And we have a vehicle there, a multi-passenger van, for opportunity for, it's a nice looking one. Opportunity for small team sports and club activities as well as academic teams.
I was reading an article about security for schools where you can put this film on the windows on the fronts and offices that's bulletproof. Have you heard anything about that? Or?
I haven't seen that. I do try to keep an eye on grants. There's a lot of movement in grants, but nothing yet no one wants to put their name on it yet. So that may be an option in the future. I know the technology is going to be a big technology swing.
Yeah.
And, it continues, so we just come back to it, it's just a continued focus on our critical systems and upgrades and making sure that we constantly try to improve the learning and activity environments for our students, families, and communities. If there's any
Thank you.
questions?
I just want to say
Sure.
thank you. I think your initiatives are forward-thinking and much appreciated.
Thank you, that's appreciated. Thank you.
Any other questions for Bill? Grant?
Yeah, could you speak to the increase in department salaries? Granted, there's a decrease in custodial salaries, but net there's still $20,000 bump.
It's just the switch of, we switched one, there's a position that was listed in one line item that's in the other line item this year, and other than that, it's just the annual increase step type of things.
Okay, thank you.
So the bottom line is pretty much the same, except for the steps.
Sasha Downey, Bolton. Just wondering, in regards to the van,
Yes.
how much is it for the van and how much do we spend to do the bus? Like, where's the?
The van right now, this what I captured there, the 45,000 is a one-time purchase straight out of the van. We have discussed maybe looking at leasing or loaning the van to stretch it out over maybe 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Tanya, maybe you can help me with the cost of a bus.
Right. I don't have the numbers, directly, but once a bus pulls out of the high school, you're talking at least $200 for that trip. So if we're looking at, in the fall, it'd be our golf team, which only 8 people go for a golf match. In the winter, when we send kids down for the indoor track meets at Reggie Lewis, it's all qualifying time. So sometimes it's only 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. And right now it's sent a bus to go to Boston for a day, so that can be anywhere from $500-$600 for that day. And also come springtime, we've been using the special ed vans for tennis. Unfortunately, only an 8-person van, and usually we send about 12 kids for a tennis match. So again, we've got 10 and 12 kids on a bus, so
Right.
we'd save for tennis. And again, when it comes, we get track again in the spring. When you get further into the district and the state and the New England meets, it's only that handful of kids that we're sending a full bus with.
And that
Less.
200 that you initially said, that's 200 there and then 200 back?
No, that's about
For a round trip local?
right.
Okay, and then
And
more
again,
when you're
it-
going further?
Right, that's
Okay.
just an average per se. Like I said, I know
No, I
Reggie
appreciate that. Just
Reggie
a-
Lewis is definitely usually like around a $500 day for 2 coaches and 5 kids.
Awesome.
So we think, and then we can, like Phil said, when it comes to the clubs, we have a math team.
We have
That-
robotics. we have
Robotics,
math,
like
we have
we've
a
got
lot of
many
very-
groups that are sending a full bus for only a handful of kids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're looking at the cost of the years, so you get hit with one cost in one year, but then over the course of years, how long do you expect the bus to be in your commission?
I'd say we're usually keeping our fleet running about 10 to 15 years.
So it's
I mean,
10 to
we do
15
try to
years.
stretch these vehicles out quite a bit, and part of that comes on an aggressive maintenance program with them.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Up next is Tanya.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Alright, so I just want to start by going over a few of our accomplishments. Over the last year, we had many accomplishments and success on and off the field. Our girls basketball team and our baseball team both won district championships for the first time in school history, and they both went on to be state finalists last year. We also had 13 teams win league championships, and that was our girls basketball, wrestling, hockey, girls and boys indoor track, baseball, boys and girls track, girls soccer, field hockey, boys and girls cross country, and golf over the last year. Our unified track team, which we're going into our 3rd year, but over the last 2 years, they've won the league unified track championship. One thing I like to highlight is that 5 of our teams did win the league sportsmanship award, and those were our boys and girls soccer teams, our boys basketball team, softball, and boys tennis. 27 varsity teams advanced to postseason play over the course of the 2013. Our girls soccer team this past year won the state award for sportsmanship, and they give out 1 award for each division, so our girls won the Division I state award. A few other things I would like to just point out is that during the class of 2013, 15 student athletes went on to play at the collegiate level, which I thought was a great number. Over 70% of our athletes do make the honor roll throughout the year. That's an average. And many of our student athletes have been successful, not only in the classroom, but also representing our school on like the state level through our MIA ambassador program and also in our league. Some goals that I have for next year is to continue and maintain a level of competitive programs throughout the district. Always looking to increase and encourage participation. We currently average right around 300 or a little more than 300 athletes per season. A continued emphasis on leadership skills, what it means to be a leader in the school and in the community, academics, and also student-athlete conduct in and out of school. And then to also continue to improve school spirit, encourage attendance at all of our events, supporting all of our teams, different, the band, the chorus, drama, just encouraging school spirit across everything. Going into some of our budget highlights, we had an increase in game officials, and these are fees that are set by the MIA. They go up usually every year, and we have been successful, so the more and more teams that are playing in playoffs, we're incurring extra costs to cover those officials because we've been lucky enough to have numerous home games. As for our game staff, this comes with our new facility. Having the new stadium turf field, we have more teams that are able to play night games. Lacrosse and field hockey are getting more games that are showcased on that field, so we do have to hire ticket sellers, announcers, clock people to help work the game. Our hockey ice time, last year during budget time, we added a JV program. It's going very well this year, but with that, we have to make sure that we have practices and games for that JV program. And then just the annual increase in transportation. But like Bill and I were just talking about, hopefully over time, if we were able to get a van that we could use, that you're going to see some decrease in the transportation budget for athletics. Next, trying to focus on some athletic supplies. We have a uniform cycle. Next year, we're looking at purchasing new cross-country and track uniforms for both boys and girls. I'm looking into upgrading and purchasing new cheerleading mats. Right now, our mats are 10-plus-year-old mats. Some of the carpet and foam are coming apart a little bit, and it's a safety concern in my eyes and the coach's eyes for our varsity athletes who are advanced in their tumbling skills, and if they were to land and the mats were to separate a little bit, we're looking at rolled ankles, and it's more of a safety concern to make sure that we're upgrading those mats. We're talking about record boards. Currently, right now, our indoor track team and swim teams do not have record boards in our upper gymnasium, so that's something that I would like to purchase to make sure.
What's the cost of a record board?
Right around $1,200.
That's it? I thought it was, I'll pay for the swim one.
Okay, so we're looking at an indoor track record board. Sold, got it. Any takers on indoor track? And then, as for banner updates, not raising your hand.
No, sorry.
As for our banner updates, with, like I said, our accomplishments with our teams doing well, we need to update our banners with the years of league championship, district championship, state finalists, and I also am looking into upgrading. Right now, our wrestling team, they wrestle all of their matches in our lower gymnasium, and we've got some very old wooden record boards that we would like to upgrade so it looks like all the banners in our upper gym, just so there's more parity between both gyms and all of our teams. And as for leadership, coaches education, this year the MIA, it's the first year that they are requiring all coaches across the state to be certified to take 3 courses. So this is just money to continue to make sure that our coaches are following this and they're taking their fundamentals coaching course, a sports-specific course, and their first aid and concussion courses. And then our student leadership workshop. Over last summer, we started our first annual leadership workshop with team captains and also younger students that coaches recommended that they feel are leaders in the building. And so I would like to continue this as a workshop every year that we bring our students together and we work on leadership skills, what it means to be a leader. This might be a funny picture. This is a picture of a game we were playing about communication. We blindfolded a partner, and their partner had to tell them they were holding a penny and they were playing tag while blindfolded. So this worked on communication and working together. And so that is pretty much it. I feel this is a budget that's going to continue to support the athletics department and the success on and off the field, and continue in building these athletes that they continue to succeed after high school as well.
I have a question.
You got it.
Have we thought, I know they have to take, that the athletes have to take concussion awareness training,
Yes.
and this gets to the email I sent you. Have we considered, or would we consider, pre-concussion scanning? I cannot pronounce it. Is it McKelly? There's a center, there's a children's hospital has a center a sports center in Waltham. And one of their community outreach programs is that they will do baseline concussion scans, pre-concussion scans for athletes, and they reduce the cost to $25 per athlete. I know that would be an additional expense in the budget at some point, but it's so cheap and it could be so valuable that, you know, you have the scan because you don't know what a kid's
You ready
brain
for this?
scan is.
We're
What?
already doing it.
Okay, I'm good.
We do have.
So look at how much you won today. A new record board. That makes
So
me happy.
We do have impact testing that we pay for each year for the software, and once we have our teams, any team that is a contact sport, once the teams are selected during freshman and junior year, every student that is on a contact sport team is given the baseline test.
Does that go to the home as well? A copy of it go to the parents?
It does not, but anytime a parent requests it, we can, you know, if a student gets a concussion, we usually print out or email that baseline test to the parent to take to the doctor.
Okay,
We have it
perfect.
all in our software system.
Perfect.
Myself and our trainer, we can, and the
That's a
nurses.
huge value to
It-
families.
Yep, it's great, and we've been doing it since I've been there. So I think
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
no,
Thank
that's
you.
okay.
Does it cost you money to do those scans?
So we pay an annual fee, and we get 500 baseline scans per year.
And you have, how many athletes?
300, right?
300 per season.
But not all.
But,
We have stayed under that 500 per year.
okay, but if someone requests one, could they get one?
Yeah, I don't see why
Okay.
not. Yep.
It's just invaluable.
No, it's a great system.
It is.
Yep.
So Tanya, I'm wondering about the transportation line item. I know it was just brought up minutes ago when Bill was sitting there. I know at least on the middle school level, we are wasting money with those buses for the ride home. There's sometimes the coach and that's it, and they just have to go back to get their car. And sometimes there's one student, I know at the high school level that's not happening because they're required to ride the bus both
Right.
ways. But at the middle school level, it seems like we could be doing something to reduce the cost there.
And actually, this was just brought to my attention a week and a half ago or so, and I briefly touched base with George, and we talked about if, you know, we could do a drop only. I can schedule a drop only, but we have to assure that every single parent is going to be there, because if there's one student that does not have a parent picking them up,
Well,
We have to
not
make
necessarily
sure
their parent, but they have a ride with some parent.
right, a ride, we can't,
Because that's what's happening. I mean, lots of kids are getting rides with other kids' parents.
right. I know, and I just found out that we've got some coaches that are riding back with just the bus driver.
Just the bus driver. Yeah, I think that's happening.
Yeah.
So it just seems like
It's we get the coach, but again, if we could schedule drop only and, you know, work really hard planning and scheduling ahead of time, you know, how is the coach getting home? Maybe the coach is riding with a parent back to the school,
right.
or
I mean, it'd be a simple fix on that. It seems. So I don't know. I just thought that would be a place that rather than increase that line item, we could decrease it.
that's something we can definitely, I think, look into and talk about. It's just like I said, it's just making sure that we know that.
Right. There'd have to be some sort of policy written about.
Right, and having
Uh,
notes, and if you're going home with another parent, and just making sure we know and are accountable for all those students.
Right. I mean, the onus would have to be on the coach.
Yep.
Yeah. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something that, I don't know, too late to see happen for this round, or could we have a little investigation into that?
No, I can definitely
Okay.
look into that.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you.
No problem.
Brad?
So it sounds as though the desire to move to that smaller van, I mean, net over the years, it will ultimately save in some costs, but I'd like to think it wasn't that long ago that I went to high school, but evidence is pointing otherwise. So it is a requirement at the high school level that they must ride transportation on everything?
Yeah, most of our coaches say
What's the
that,
coach
you
is
know,
required?
we are riding to the event together, and we're gonna come home together as a team.
Mm-hmm. And does that count towards practices too?
You
So
know,
are you guys providing transportation on practices? So, for example, the hockey team?
only the hockey team gets transportation to practices.
Okay. All right.
But also for like the cross country team, I know our meets are it's only like 2 miles away from the high school, so most kids just go home with their parents because it's only like 2 miles down the road from the high school. But the parents would rather pick them up at the meet versus.
Right, and for cross country, we'd use the one bus that
Yeah.
it does numerous trips between the high school and Bower Springs.
Yeah.
Because the cross country team would fill 2 full buses, but we just shuttle that.
Yeah.
And actually, next year we're hoping to move the cross country meets to the high school.
Yeah, to the high school.
Any other questions for Tanya? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ed.
So the next department is teaching and learning and health. And to start off with, this is the department that oversees the district's efforts around curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Our primary increases are around the work that I've talked about as the three focal points of the budget around science or STEM. So we are going to be writing our science curriculum this spring, fall, and into the spring, summer, and fall, and hope to have a draft ready for the spring of next year. Next year, probably around January, we'll start our social studies curriculum, and the tech engineering work that we're doing is actually already started, but we're going to be working this summer to flesh out the tech engineering science standards and rework some of the tech engineering staffing in terms of their assignments and scheduling and so forth, based on any changes that are proposed. So the increase there is for teachers to be working on the curriculum through the summer in our summer academy and after school next fall.
How many teachers would that be, Michael?
Well, it depending on the curriculum area, it could be a total of about 45 different teachers. We'd like to have
So
at
those
least
are small
one
stipends.
per grade, and one. So we have like to have 12 to 15 teachers. So it isn't a large stipend.
Okay.
Question on that? What do you see going forward then if the curriculum is adopted or changed? What do you see that, how do you see that affecting 16 and beyond?
So that would be the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. So after a curriculum is written, then we look for the resources that would be necessary to implement it. And we are going to be starting to look at science resources for the curriculum. So there's about $25,000 there. There are, in the STEM curriculum that is being looked at, which has been drafted by the state, there are actually two components. There's actually the standards, the content, and then what they call the process standards, which is a common way of breaking out how students learn. And so, especially with science, where it's very inquiry-based, there are a lot of materials for experiments and so forth. So this money is actually to support our existing curriculum and science kits. They're called FOSS kits for K through 5. And we know that those will probably be going into future years as well. So that's what that money is for. And then we finished our math curriculum 2 years ago. We did a K-5 just before that, and high school last year. And so this is our 6th through 8th. So we did break that one down. And this is a increase of $123,000 over what we have in the budget.
Is that a one-time kind of thing then?
That would be a one-time cost, but as you know, with the multiple areas of curriculum, so this line fluctuates. So this year it was in the 50s, so it increased just over $78,000 or so. In system-wide PD, much of this work is to, much of the increases here, $15,000, it's a $10,000 increase, is to support having facilitators that we would train to work with our teachers on the early release days. We find them very helpful to have someone who is understanding of the overall objective of the time and the district vision and plan for the year. And that is additional work outside of their school day, so we do need to support that. The instructional coaches is something we've had in and out of our budget over the years. This is incredibly helpful to the schools to have people on staff in the buildings and to work with teachers one-on-one or one-on-team if it's a grade level initiative, and to have somebody who's, again, more expert, willing to go in and help a teacher in a classroom, or provide opportunities for the teacher to come in and observe them in their classroom, and then give some time afterwards for feedback to help the teacher grow professionally. The work that we're going to be doing, obviously again tied into this, is understanding assessment design and analysis. As you know, as part of the new evaluation system, there's a big component around teacher assessments and growth of student performance. And so it's very important that our teachers know how to construct quality assessments and also then to analyze the growth of their students. STEM, obviously, as we have been talking about, we want our teachers K through 5 to have a common understanding of what's expected and how to teach it and how to devote the time necessary to make sure all students make progress. Writing to text is an initiative that's been going on for a couple of years now, but it's getting more necessary to make sure that our teachers know and understand how to build in teaching time to have students learn how to write using nonfiction material to be included in their writing samples. This is becoming more important with the current MCAS, as well as it'll be a big part of the next iteration of whatever the state assessment is. Right now it appears it's going to be PARC. So students need to know and understand how to extract information from text and be able to embed and construct new information in writing. And then using technology, this is obviously something that we are going to have on a continual basis, but we want teachers to be using technology in their everyday teaching and their everyday assessment and their everyday practices with kids. And so we want to, again, facilitate that and support teachers who are at different levels of experience using technology in their classrooms. For a variety of reasons, could be that we haven't provided them the technology, so it's new to their building or new to their grade level. And so we want to make sure that we have experts in there with them so that they can get those kinds of experiences.
Excuse me, Michael?
Yep.
With the number for instructional coaches just being $17,500, obviously you're not hiring coaches. Can you
Right. So
say something about?
So these are stipends for existing teachers within the schools, and this would be a stipend to just it's really just a token in some respects, but it's essentially to encourage. The request would be that they use their common planning time to be coaches, and so that they will be able to use that as planning time.
Are there any staff dedicated to the coaching role?
Right now?
Yeah.
No, we don't have any this year.
That was my question. What happened to all those teaching and learning people we've gotten?
Oh, so we have, in the Department of Teaching and Learning, those staff do provide some coaching.
I thought so.
And certainly, but they're one person for the entire district. This would put a staff member in each building who would take on a focus point directed by the principal and would support that. So yes, we have a curriculum person for technology, a curriculum person for STEM, and a curriculum person for ELA, and they do provide coaching, but it's, they're doing the entire district.
So their workload wouldn't be reduced necessarily. This would just augment it.
This would be augmenting.
And I had another question, which is why did the administration line for teaching and learning go down by 44,000?
That's just a shift in the people who are in the positions now for the salaries that are in there.
So there hasn't been a reduction?
There hasn't been a reduction.
Okay. Thank you.
And then health, there are no major changes in our health budget. It's going down by 1.5%, 1.6%, and it is supported to a degree by our Essential School Health Grant, and so that's very, very helpful. And we've been talking about response to intervention, and the grant that we get will have some component of that working with our mental health initiative around response to intervention.
How much is that grant?
The total grant is, I believe, 70.
That's
It's now $70,000. We just got back a component of it. It was cut in half for a few years during the last. Yeah, it was 30 for a while. And now we just got back about $30,000. So, which is very helpful.
All right.
Other questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Next is special education.
It's exactly 10 o'clock. We're right on schedule.
It's page up and page down on the bottom.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I just wanted to take a moment to go over a couple of things that are happening this year, some of our focuses. Of course, this is a focus for everyone in the district, implementing the new teacher evaluation process. It's a little bit different for special educators and related service providers than it is for general educators, but all of us are getting our heads around a new process and some new software and so forth, and I think it's going to be very positive ultimately, but it's, a lot of work getting up and running for everyone. We are working on completing the coordinated program review process. Some of you know that every 6 years the department comes in and takes a very close look at special education and some other areas, but special education being a primary focus for them. And there's lots and lots of work preparing for that, making sure that all of our ducks are in a row so that when they come and look at them, they see that. We're always working on that, of course, but it's having it be able to be presented in a way that folks can readily understand it and see it. In terms of PD for staff this year, one of the things that we've really been focusing on is implementing a more consistent behavioral approach. We have, BCBAs, board certified behavior analysts in the district, interventionists, lots of folks who support behavior and appropriate behavior for students. But it's really, we think it's really important to get everyone on a page with a unified approach. And so we've been working on that by providing professional development for the folks that I just mentioned. We have the same presenter that those folks went out to see, paraprofessionals are going to be seeing, so we're really trying to tie it together. There's a book that we've used, there's a book group around the same presentation, the same approach and so forth, so we think this is going to be beneficial across the district. There's been a positive impact on the student special educator ratio at Hale and Burbank. Some of you will recall that last year we increased special education at both of these schools by one, the teachers. And what it has allowed us to do is have one teacher per grade level. And you can just imagine how well that serves our students and all of our teachers, our teams, because they're able to be really true partners with those that are on their teams.
Is that consistent across the schools?
Last year, we moved to do that at Hale and Burbank. We made the decision to move forward and kind of see what we would see.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen very positive reviews. Of course, it's early in terms of test scores or things like that to see that impact, but we certainly see it in terms of the work, the day-to-day work, and how things are functioning.
So my question, selfishly, is because from a Bolton perspective, we have 2 schools in one location.
Sure.
And do we have special educator dedicated to each grade level in that school?
We don't currently at these were grades 6 to 8. At grades 6 to 8, what you're going to see in subsequent slide here is that we're moving in that direction for grades 3 to 5 for next year. So
You're moving in for which schools?
Yeah, in all 3 towns.
In all
For
3
grades
towns.
3 to 5.
So all right. So let me simplify because I'm saying too many words. What do you have dedicated in the Bolton school?
Currently at grades 6 to 8, there are 2 special educators.
And that's it?
For the inclusion program, to support the inclusion program, yes. Rather than 3.
Okay,
at
so,
the other schools.
but you're gonna,
We're heading in that direction. We're seeing what it is that, what's working. So far, we're very positive about the outcomes, and we're planning to extend into grades 3 to 5 in all 3 towns. Again, going forward, do we move there for 6 to 8? If that's the question that you're, in
absolutely,
Bolton,
that's the question.
I think that we see how it works, and we continue to look at that. And if
Is there a need? Is there a need in the Bolton school? Joel?
Well, Brian, I can speak to last year. Michael and Tracy and I talked about the options on the table in terms of the programming with the special educators, and we decided at that time that given the resources that we had, we would move toward putting a mathematics resource specialist into our program and keep the special ed model the way it was with the number of paraprofessionals. Our students are supported, so from that perspective it works. And when we get into my slides, you'll see what I'll be proposing.
But do you think
special
there's
education.
a need to have a dedicated sped teacher in the
For each grade level.
For each
for each grade level?
Yeah, I'm encouraged to see how it's working in at Hale. And
So I don't want to be a jerk here, but do you think we need a sped teacher for each? Would you benefit? Would your school benefit, or would it be overkill?
No,
I
All right, I
think
don't
it's
wanna-
important to understand that the model did make a shift in personnel.
Yeah.
So last year, when we did it at the middle schools, and what we're proposing again for the elementary schools this year, is that we had one teacher, but we reduced by 2 paraprofessionals. So right now, the model that Joel is choosing to move forward with Tracy is that the middle school is going to continue, but it has the additional paraprofessional support to be able to manage the caseload.
I do want to be clear too. It was on the table for us, but I didn't think we could manage it with the minutes that we would have to meet if we would have just one teacher at each grade level and not the paraprofessionals.
Right, so my question, the genesis of my question really is, do you, and no disrespect to you or anyone else, but do you have what you think you need?
At this time, yes.
Okay. Thanks, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry
no,
for the
that's
dog
okay.
leg.
Not at all. The recommendations have been made in conjunction with the building principals, so that's fine.
But I still want to hear what my guy has to say.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Thanks.
The other thing this year has been welcoming and orienting the new special educators, particularly through that initiative as well. We just had, some normal, turnover, so we had quite a number of new special educators this year, and we need to be mindful of that and increase our, time, our attention to them and opportunities for them to learn how we do things at Nashoba. So goals for next year, as I mentioned, we would like to improve the special educator student ratios in grades 3 to 5, which will allow us to increase co-teaching. We also have some initiatives to go forward with some additional co-teaching at the high school level, specifically wanting to focus on math there and increase the opportunities there for our students. All of this obviously to improve academic interventions. We want to improve access to language-based strategies for our students who have learning disabilities and need that throughout their day and throughout their curriculum. Again, co-teaching should
So
improve
what's that like? Talk a little bit about that. That's interesting.
Language-based strategies?
Yeah.
So students who have language-based learning disabilities need us to be mindful of that across their entire day. And through co-teaching, we increase, obviously, the opportunities for that to be implemented, which is, a number of different strategies. It's how we present material, how we speak when we present material to children, how we present it on the page, what other kinds of supports there can be, both through the instruction as well as through the evaluation and so forth that we do of students.
So it's
But
responsive.
having better access to special educators can improve our opportunities to do that with all of our educators.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We'd like to increase preschool programming to meet all of the needs across the 3 towns. And naturally, we will need to implement the feedback that comes from our coordinated program review process. The last time around, about 6 years ago, for those of you who were, knowing about that at the time, we fared very, very well, and we would expect that again this time, but there's always room for improvement, and, they may give us some thoughts and ideas about that, and we will need to focus on that.
Is the preschool programming self-sufficient, so it's covered, pays for itself, or no?
No.
And is it paid for by the state when it's mandated, or no?
Not really.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
I mean, quasi. I wouldn't say 100%. We do receive a special ed grant, so there are so salaries are in that go to preschool, and it's an integrated preschool. So George can speak more to the tuition setting that for the typical peers, but it doesn't. It's not 100%.
Right, I mean, we charge tuition which covers the cost of the students to, typical peers, as Michael said. So essentially, we cover the cost of the people who are in the program on a choice basis. So that's covered by tuition, so they pay for that, so that's, that is covered. But the overall cost of the program, the special education component is a cost to the district.
Okay.
That's a requirement anyhow for students who are eligible for special
Right.
education
That they-
services at age 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's the state is 3 through 21, so it has to be available. And at the same time that we have a need for some additional slots, some additional spaces for special education, we also have a desire on community members for their children for paid slots. So, and we have space and stuff. So, and generally, the plan was and the hope was to go in this direction over time anyhow. But the needs seem to reflect it, both in special ed as well as in general ed. So the new positions are, as mentioned, a special educator for 3 to 5 at MRE, also Sawyer, also Center, and the Center preschool teacher. In terms of the non-salary budget highlights that you would see, besides these lines, everything else is very level. These three are not. The transportation increase was mentioned earlier. Some of you may know that there was, certainly the school committee does, that the vendor that we were using filed bankruptcy. We learned only in November, and they needed to stop business as of the end of December, so it was a very short turnaround. And with a lot of support from the superintendent and assistant superintendent, and our collaborative, we moved forward to join our collaborative with the vendor that they use and the contract that they use. And we're very pleased so far with the transition. The feedback has been overall very, very good, though we know it is a challenge for our students and our parents to make a change like that so abruptly. It's been very positive overall. That said, the way that it's billed is very different from our prior contract, and we're still, somewhat uncertain as to what those total costs will be. Of course, we've estimated, but, until you see the actual bills coming in. And of course, yesterday would have been the last day of the first month with the new vendor, so we're in a unique position in terms of being able to forecast what it's going to be. So we've forecast quite conservatively in this case, in terms of making sure that we're going to have what we need. The out-of-district tuition, there is an increase. Over the time that I've been here, about 12 years now, we have reduced our out-of-district significantly. We were at 60 some odd students out of district when I arrived. We have tended to be in the low 20s in terms of number of students out of district over the last 8 years or so, which is great. We did that by building programming and bringing more appropriate services to students in the district. And we still do that, and our principals, our general ed teachers, our special ed teachers are all working very hard still along those lines, and we continue to want to make improvements, some of which we've just mentioned. And yet still, there are some students who require out-of-district placement, and we happen to have a bit of an uptick expected for next year. And tuitions are very, very high. That's all public information, so that's something anyone can look up, but they are very, very expensive in those settings. And so it's quite a significant increase, even though it only reflects a fairly small number of students, fewer than 10 students.
Because of people who moved to town, one of the 3 towns?
To some extent.
Okay.
Not entirely.
School choice impacting that?
No. No, school choice does not impact this.
Okay.
No.
So it's six new or 6 in total?
About a total of 6 new students to, right.
So in the
So we're
20s or something?
hovering in the mid to upper 20s now, rather than low 20s. And again, it may be important to say as compared to the high 60s
Right.
in 2001 when I arrived here. So, we've done a lot, and the schools are continuing to do a lot. I wouldn't want anyone to think differently. But it's a small number of students. That little increase is a small number of students, and you're going to see, there are going to be times when there are going to be more, times when there are going to be fewer over the course of time. We're seeing it as that. We're not seeing it as a trend. We're not having concerns about how our schools are operating, or, when people are thinking that there needs to be something different. We're not seeing that.
And are the 6 new students, or the new students, regardless of the number,
Yeah.
do they tend to be kindergarten, or are they older?
They've been older.
Been older, so it is people moving to town. It's not just that their kids have reached the school age.
It's not that it has not tended to be that children have reached school age. It has been either students who have moved into the district or students whose needs have changed over time.
Okay.
I think the thing to point out too, if you look at the history of this particular line item, it's really one of the most volatile line items in most school districts' budgets. And frankly, over the 8 years I've been here, we very rarely grapple with a problem in this budget or see huge increases. When we go to, district and state meetings that I go to, that's what they're always talking about, how they're going to manage their overruns and things like that. And we really haven't had that issue whatsoever. So I think that historical perspective is important to keep in mind regarding this line item too.
So you're saying that it's a realistic number as opposed to saying, oh, it's only going to be blah, 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 and then ending up having it be way more than what.
I mean, that, to some extent, I can't really predict either, much like this year. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can't predict all students' needs all the time. But I'm just saying, historically, we've had a stability in this line item that has been absent for most districts. And, as Tracy said, hopefully and likely this is a blip. We don't see a trend, but, we can't guarantee the future.
Bottom line
trend,
is
we have to address it.
We have to address
obviously.
it, right, yeah.
we don't have any control over
Right,
this
exactly,
particular line
yeah.
item.
Right.
Right.
Essentially.
Essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Students' needs are what they are. Yep.
Terry?
Now, just a question, how did you manage to get that number down so much? From 67 to 20? Because 20 doesn't seem like a big number, and I understand that the costs are huge. So what did you do? And I guess the follow-up question, is there anything more that we can do to even reduce that further, because it's a huge number?
Sure. Well, I briefly mentioned it. We increased our programming. At that time, we added some special education programs to the district and improved them, I mentioned BCBAs earlier, Board Certified Behavior Analysts,
Okay.
which is sort of descriptive of their work. They have a master's degree in behavior and so forth. So it was about adding expertise to the district and programming to the district that allowed those children to have the appropriate program right here and not have to go anywhere else. There are costs associated with those things too, I would want to say, but in any case, we find it appropriate to have our kids here in the district whenever possible.
So do you think adding these new SPED teachers, forgive me, I don't have any kids, so I'm not going to maybe use all the right acronyms,
That's okay.
but in 3 to 5 and then moving that way, will that help keep more kids in? I mean, is that the goal of that, to keep more kids in the district?
It always is to service all of the children better, and ultimately, as we serve children better within the district, that's right, that keeps our out-of-district numbers lower. So, yes, overall, yes.
So we might see a change. Maybe you don't know. I mean, I know it's always meeting the needs of the kids, but
Yes.
that might be a benefit, another benefit of adding these new teachers.
It is always the goal to improve the programming in the district so that the answers are here for children.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is the cost per child that gets educated outside of a district in a special needs case?
Yeah, so it ranges quite widely, and those costs are set by the state. So they're not just set by the individual schools, but it ranges very, very widely. Again, it's public information, but I think, I could say that they begin in the $30,000 or so range and go all the way on up to, the most expensive placements are over $300,000 a year
Per person?
per person.
So
That would
this is
be
different than the
residential placement.
$17,000 out-of-district cost
Yes.
that you folks are mentioning now?
Yes, yes. This is for students who have highly intense special needs, who require something different from what the public school can offer.
So then we paid that, right? We
Yes.
covered that cost.
Yes, within the budget. However, there is offset through circuit breaker, so there are offsets that come to us around those costs, but it's not 100% of the cost.
How
That's-
much of it
that's
would it be?
offset.
50?
About $500,000 a year.
$500,000. So it's a fixed cost. There's not a percentage, or is there a per
It
student?
is a percentage. It's dependent upon the costs that we incur.
It changes each year, but the average might be the high $400,000 to $500,000 a year, probably about 30% of our overall district budget.
So then it makes sense what you're doing, which is bringing in experts in.
We think so. It has historically made sense. We believe it will continue to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more question.
One quick question, hopefully.
You mentioned it wasn't a very big number, and yet there was a big cost associated with it. So for those kids, the needs that they have that can't be met here, in terms of the cost to meet them here, does it exceed what it costs to send them out based on infrastructure and, you know, do you understand?
I do understand
Okay.
the question, and so that is one part of the equation, and another part of the equation is, at any cost, can you provide what a particular student may need? Do you know what I mean? So
Yep,
that I just
yep.
want to
So, like the
balance
$300,000, I can't even imagine
what that
one
is. That's right.
special individual gets.
That's
know?
right, and to
But
create a
obviously
program
we-
of one, regardless whether it costs $250,000 to do or whatever,
Right.
you know, would still be a program of one and not be practical and perhaps appropriate for a student to have a program of one. Do you know what I mean? So
In
you have
public
that,
settings.
right,
Yep,
so you
I
have
follow.
that whole side of the equation as well. But yes, naturally, we are always thinking about, can we bring in the services that those students would need, and would that be more cost
It sounds
effective,
like
of
you
course,
have.
but it's always better for children anyway, whenever we can. And we have always, you know, been dealing with that balance and trying to make that right balance.
And you've whittled it down now to less, or 10, whatever.
No, 30 total.
Oh, 30 total, I'm sorry.
Currently, right, we've rested in the low 20s in terms
Okay.
of number of students out of
Okay.
district for a few years, quite a few years now. And at this
And
point,
it just bumped up.
a bit up towards the middle or upper 20s, yeah.
Any other questions for Tracy?
There's just one more
Oh,
quick
I'm
line.
sorry.
That's
Sorry.
okay, no problem. But look, let me say there's gonna be a decrease though, okay? In contracted
Tell us about
services. And this is related to the questions that are being asked. So because some of those students will be out of district in a more highly specialized placement, there's actually a decrease in the need for some of the very highly specialized services that were coming into the district. So, but, other than that, are there other questions?
One question, I don't know if you can answer. Out of the number of children, how many children does the special education budget touch? So, is there a general
Overall? About 430. If anyone has a more up to date, but it's about.
And that includes the outside, that's
Yes.
60 as well? I mean, that's
All.
20, I'm sorry. Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Thank
all
you.
special ed students.
Now, any other questions?
Tried to cut me off.
Okay, take a break, if it's okay with everybody. We'll plan to do a 10-minute break and be back here at 10:30. If everybody's ready, we'll resume our meeting. Back to the budget workshop for FY15. Next on the docket is Perry Graham with the high school.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here this morning. I wanted to start by introducing some people who are here supporting the high school. Rhonda Jardine Yates, who is my co-chair with our school council, is here. She's also a science teacher at the high school. And then we have Jackson Werner, who's also one of our school council members, one of our student reps. We have Brian Cody, one of our assistant principals, and Carrie O'Donnell, who is our new assistant principal this year. So glad to see them here today. I wanted to start by talking about our school improvement plan, which helps to set the strategic vision and resource allocation for the high school. I'm going to talk about the school improvement plan that's kind of completing and the new school improvement plan that we're putting in place. I was also here back in the fall, and I talked about the strategic vision that I laid out for the high school: collaboration, innovation, and personalization, based on what I had learned last year. And so I wanted to talk about how that helps to set the tone for the budget, and then get into my specific budget requests. So I'll start by talking about the prior school improvement plan, which we're now kind of finishing up. There were two big goals that we set with the school council. The first was focusing on safety and student culture, trying to understand, there was some concerns when I started at the high school around safety, ideas like drug use, and trying to get a handle on what the reality was and what we could do about it. And then also supporting underachieving students. We have a very large group of students at the high school who perform very well, but we do have kids who struggle, and trying to figure out how we can better support them. So I spent a lot of time collecting data last year around those. One piece of data that was of particular importance was our Risk Youth Behavior Survey data. There were a number of different things that we put in place to try to address safety at the high school. One that's been very successful is the school resource officer. We have a school resource officer in the building 3 days a week. Bolton police officers. We put in new video cameras. We've done a number of different presentations to students. There was a lot of energy around trying to make sure we're educating students as much as possible. We did something around substance abuse with the Worcester District Attorney's Office near the end of last year for our juniors and seniors. And we also did something with juniors and seniors this year around distracted driving. With supporting underachieving students, there was more kind of data gathering than there was action last year, although we have started to put in place some interventions. In particular, there's a grant that we were able to get through the Health Central Office. It's allowed us to get some math software that can help to diagnose areas where students might struggle and then provide instructional support. And then our draft school improvement plan now going forward. We decided to continue the work on supporting underachieving students and starting to implement some new programming improvements. One example is looking at a new math class called Math Foundations. One of the things I found this to be true as a middle school principal, and it's also true as a high school principal, is that kids who have gaps in their math knowledge, as they continue to move forward, it's hard to both keep up, keep going, and catch up on the things where you have gaps. And one way that we'd like to try to address that is putting in place a new math class next year, it would not be a students-only math class. They would take their normal math class, but this would be an opportunity for them to receive more individualized support to try to fill in some of those gaps that they have. Also want to continue to work on improving information transfer between the middle schools and the high school, making sure that we're doing a good job reaching out to the middle schools and understanding our students who are most at risk. So from day one, we've got plans to work with them. And while we put in place some intervention programming now, we want to continue to expand that both next year and in future years. And then our second big goal is looking at technology vision for the high school, which I know is a big priority at the district level. One of the things we found this year with BYOD is we did a lot of work this summer. The IT department did a lot of work this summer to expand infrastructure. And what we found is that the more you build it, the more they come, which is great. But you have to continue to expand. We've really started to use wireless a lot more at the high school. So figuring out how we can continue to expand infrastructure and making sure that we have a vision around what we're trying to accomplish. I mentioned before, based on the information I gathered at the high school last year, listening to parents, students, teachers, trying to come up with the things that we are best at the high school and the areas in which we can most improve. And in terms of areas we can improve, focusing on collaboration, innovation, and personalization. One very positive thing I've seen happen this year, I think I may have mentioned this last year, is trying to find ways within the master schedule to give teachers the opportunities to work in small professional learning teams to focus on curriculum assessment, instruction. Over 20 teachers are formally doing that in professional learning teams during the day, and then other teachers are doing it on a less formal basis. I've been very excited about that. The NEASC self-improvement process, we are way deep into NEASC. Our committees are involved in the process of gathering data and creating our committee reports, and that's been a big collaborative process for us. In terms of innovation, trying to expand the course offerings we have, and I kind of asked the faculty at the end of last year and the beginning of this year to think about what are new course offerings, particularly interdisciplinary course offerings that we could look to put in place. And I have been overwhelmed with some of the ideas that teachers have come up with. So looking at our program of studies for next year, I'll give you a couple examples of things that we're planning to put in place. Molecular gastronomy, the art and science of cooking. That's a team-taught course by Dr. David Form, who's our AP biology teacher, and Mrs. Diane O'Neill, who's our foods teacher. I was sitting in with them while they were planning out the course, and they were talking about the cheese unit they're going to do, where kids are going to make cheese and talk about the science underlying all of that. So I thought that was very exciting. There's some cool senior English science interdisciplinary courses, and they have fun titles as well. One was the literature of epidemiology, Catch Me If You Can, looking at British literature around epidemiology, but also studying diseases. And then maritime studies, the literature of maritime studies, and that one was from Fish Tales, Tails, to Fish Tales, Tales. So looking at maritime literature, but also studying oceanography. And those would be team taught by a science teacher and an English teacher. We also are looking to put in place a freshman humanities class, which would be a double block English and social studies class, so trying to take a more thematic approach to humanities for freshmen. And then looking at personalization as well, trying to improve the freshman transition. Carrie O'Donnell has been doing a lot of work on collecting feedback from our current freshmen around ways in which we could be improving the transition for future freshmen, and got some pretty interesting ideas around that. And continue to expand course offerings, both in terms of the interdisciplinary courses, but I think also expanding some of our programs that might not be interdisciplinary. And two big examples, computer science and theater arts. We offer right now one computer science course, and when I look at some comparable high schools, I see many more offerings. So looking to add, for next year, 2 additional computer science courses along with a video game design course, and then expanding our theater arts. Currently, we offer an acting class, but really trying to add advanced acting, a musical theater course, and a theater tech course for next year.
So you know what to ask. Could you go through that again, what the curriculum will look like from that perspective?
Yep, so the idea that I have in my head, and I don't have a strong background in theater, so what I'm going on is recommendations that I've gotten from Bill Grady, who's very active in the after school, and then looking at what other schools that have larger programs offer. So we currently offer an Acting 1 class.
Which is a half-year class?
Which is a semester-long course. So looking to add then an Acting 2, which would be a continuation of acting, so a more advanced version of that, which would also be a semester-long course. Then a year-long musical theater course, and then I think it's probably a semester-long theater tech course.
How are you going to do that with .4?
Can I come back to that in just a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on to kind of some of the specifics?
Freshman boot camp. So
Sorry?
basically it's like, when we discussed like 8th graders coming up to the high school to get like adjusted, basically.
Say again, Jack?
Like freshman boot camp, like middle schoolers coming up to the high school.
So yeah, so one of the things that we talked about at school council, and there was a funny coincidence because the president of the National Honor Society, Tommy Taft, came and met with me and said that our National Honor Society is looking to try to do some things for the school, some kind of big service projects, and they talked specifically about the working somehow with freshmen in their transition to the high school. And it was very interesting because one of the ideas that I think I had was, it might be cool to do some buddying where we like buddy freshmen with upperclassmen. The freshmen did not like that idea at all. They really did not like that idea at all. But one of the big pieces of feedback they gave us was do more things before the year begins. And I think we've talked about that if you're an athlete, a freshman athlete, you come in, you get a chance to be in the high school, to get to meet people ahead of time. But if you're not involved in athletics, you don't. So in talking with National Honor Society and picking up on conversations we had in the school council, one of the ideas was to do some sort of a like freshman activity week that the National Honor Society might run. I mean, this is still kind of speculative, where it would be upper class students running almost kind of like a freshman camp with fun activities, but getting into the building, figuring out where the lockers are, how you open a locker, figuring out where the classrooms are. But trying to do more on the front end to help them transition to the high school, which was one of the big pieces of feedback that we got from the freshmen.
So don't give up on the buddy system yet, because a lot of the colleges will buddy sophomores with freshmen because they're so fresh in their mind, it's less intimidating.
Yep.
Don't give up on that yet.
So we won't give up on that.
Don't give up on that.
Don't give up on that.
Because it's encouraging and exciting to see some of the innovative stuff you're doing, and I love the fact that the high school is now combining areas of science and other core educational components with, what other people might consider things that are just add-ons. And that's what's happening in the middle school and the elementary school, and the way that the teachers are kind of working together to combine their subjects, art and history, whatever it is. That's really encouraging.
Yep, it's exciting stuff. So talking about some of the specifics, so you'd asked me a question about how would I do that with the .4. So we currently have those 2 acting classes already, and so then I'm talking about, It's an acting class that's offered both semesters.
Okay.
So you offer it's one semester class that's offered both semesters.
Okay.
So that's kind of like one full teaching section. So then I'm talking about then adding another kind of 2 additional teaching sections along with that. So while it's adding .4, that's really 3 teaching sections kind of per day. So if you have, let's say you have 2 acting 1 classes, an acting 2 class, tech class, theater tech class, which are semester classes, and then you have a musical theater class that's a full year long.
Yeah.
That's 3 periods.
That is
So-
really exciting for the however many kids there are in the high school, less the third who participate in sports and love it and it's their passion. And for the 2/3 of kids that many of them find their way into theater arts because that's their gig, that's really encouraging.
Yep, and I got strong feedback from parents and from students too. I had some meetings with students as well, talking about really wanting to, while we're doing some exciting things after school, we really need to have an in-house, a more robust in-house theater arts program. So I see
And
this
the
as a
right
first.
person to lead this.
You're right. And so I mean, there's still a lot of unknowns there, finding the right person to lead it. You have to get enrollment as well, but I see this as kind of a first step in really building a theater arts program.
Thank you.
At the high school. So then .6 math, and the next 3 positions, math, social studies, and science, we anticipate additional enrollment at the high school next year. We have a current senior class of about 230 kids and a current junior class of about 260 kids. So as that junior class ages forward, that's just creates a much larger senior class for us. And the incoming freshman class is supposed to be pretty big.
It's 260.
Say again?
Isn't it 260?
What did I say?
The one coming in, you said it's supposed to be big.
Oh, you mean the incoming freshman class? Yeah, I think it's supposed to, I saw a number bigger than
Is it
that.
280?
I saw a number bigger than that. Now, I mean, you never entirely know until they get there what it's going to be. But essentially, we're anticipating that the incoming freshmen and then the rising sophomore and juniors will be roughly the same as the classes they're replacing, give or take, 5 or 10 students one way or the other. But one might be a little bit bigger, one's a little bit smaller. But that rising senior class is considerably bigger. So we're anticipating probably being somewhere in the 1,055 to 1,065 range next year, whereas we're 1,031, 32 right now. So just we're going to have more kids in the building, and particularly in the core academics. That means that you're adding a section and a half or so. So part of this is just trying to keep up with enrollment, but then the other piece is trying to expand course offerings. So I mentioned the Math Foundations course. That's in addition to what we already offer. Computer science, we're talking about offering new courses in addition to what we already have. In social studies, there were at least one course this year that we weren't able to run. That's military history is one that pops to mind. That's a pretty popular course for seniors, particularly seniors who might be thinking about going into the military. And we just didn't have the, we had to make some tough decisions because we weren't able to run everything we wanted to. There's another new course that I'm excited about within social studies, Living Locally, which is an interdisciplinary course focused on what it means to live in the Stowe, Bolton, Lancaster area. Tim Kastner has been doing a lot of work trying to develop that. And then in science, I mentioned a number of the different science offerings that we're looking to expand. We also want to try to create some opportunities for seniors to do a little bit more in the way of, we've had a senior seminar or senior independent study on the books, but we've only had like 1 or 2 kids a year that really done that. I'm trying to formalize that a little bit, and so we've got Living Locally kind of falls under that umbrella. English department is interested in having second semester for the English class, giving students the opportunity to do something that's a little bit more open-ended. And then within science also, one of the proposals for a new class is a STEM independent research class where a senior would be able to identify a science research question, develop an experiment to try to answer that question and kind of go through that whole process.
Would that be in the school, or would that include like corporations being able to partner?
So it would be in the school, but could include doing internship type work, and we're looking at those as things that, while it might be in the school, it wouldn't necessarily mean that you have 22 kids meeting with that teacher in the classroom every day. It might be, I'm touching base with a small group of, I'm rotating through those kids, and we're touching base once a week with each of those groups of kids, but they're doing a lot of independent work as well, which is what they're going to get when they get to college.
Right.
So trying to come up with some structured opportunities, because I think that can you want to make sure that you have clear expectations that the students know what they are required to do.
Well, it's a bridge to next year.
But it's, yeah, the idea is that you're, the high school looks very different from college, and we want to try to make sure that that senior year of high school starts to look a little bit more like college. Other questions about this?
Just one more. Do you feel that the amount of courses for computer science is competitive? Is it hindering anything for students?
Right now, we only offer one,
Right,
and it's
that's
great,
like-
super pop. In fact, John and I were talking about that earlier, and so it. When I look at other similar schools, they have more in the way of computer science type courses, and so I would really like to beef that up so that we're not just comparable but ahead of other.
Is that maybe in next year's?
No. So that's for next year. We're talking about adding. So we have one year-long computer science course that we offer right now. So we're talking about adding a kind of an intro computer science that would be a semester-long course that would also be available to freshmen, and then an kind of a projects in computer science that would be a more advanced course with kids who are kind of picking their own thing to do and really exploring that in depth. And I would love to get us to a point where we have AP computer science in-house.
Absolutely.
I think next year is probably a bridge too far to do that, but that's where I'd like for us to go. And then a video game design, which is a little bit less on programming. So, anything else before we move on?
There's a question behind you.
Yes.
What kind of computer science course you're offering now?
So right now we have a year-long computer science course. It's taught by Pat Clark, who's in our math department. And they do a pretty fair amount of stuff, so they work in a variety of different languages. I'm by no means an expert, so if I try to get too specific, I'll confuse myself. But I mean, I think like Java, C++, they do stuff. And so it tends to be more structured in the first semester. In the second semester, they tend to be able to kind of build their own things. What we'd like to do is offer something that's a semester long, more of an intro course that would allow that year-long course to become even more independent, and then kind of a true semester-long course where you're really doing your own thing, and it's much more advanced level stuff that's more individualized. And then we'd love to move towards computer science at some point in the future.
Are those courses they take that would lead into technology?
Yes. Yes.
One more question behind you, Mary.
Yep.
I just to clarify, so there's two positions, or two, there's two. I'm looking at the points, 0.6, 0.4. So 0.2 is about a class.
So yeah, 0.2. So a full-time teacher teaches 5 classes each day. So that's a 7-period day. They teach 5 classes each day. And so 0.2 means that you're teaching essentially 1 class for the full year.
Got it. So for the number of 2, we're getting 10 additional classes? Is that what, like, so all of those, all that wonderful stuff that you just said?
Yep, so
is going to come under the guise of 2 full-time positions?
Yeah, if you add them all together,
Right,
yes,
right.
if you add them all together. Now,
Okay.
some of the courses that I described will be, I mean, for example, the combo English science for seniors, which was
Right.
like maritime studies, that would not be in addition to, that would be an option within the current English courses that they take, so that's not an in addition to.
Okay.
I didn't want to go absolutely bananas because, you have to be
No,
fiscally
but
prudent.
yeah.
But there are some things that are above and beyond that require additional staffing.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just to clarify, if this makes sense, that these positions, in order to find the dollar implications, if you go to the department within, on the budget, you would see the increase in salary for that department. So that's where you'd find it, just FYI.
I think the answer to that is yes. You're saying that then, like within the English department, it would be a 0.4 increase in the
Exactly.
salary budget for the English department.
Yes, and here it says English teacher salaries, and there is an increase of 2.5% indicated. So that would be that.
It's a step advancement in that. If you really look at the budget sheet and you really want to see that when new these places come in, go back to the salary composite sheet, and that will show you each line item, how much of each line item is actually new salary versus existing salary.
Then move on to, so the non-salary budget stuff is not quite as exciting, so NEASC, our site visit would be March 2015, will be March 2015, and that has pretty heavy associated costs. There are 16 educators who come to visit us. They're in district from Sunday through Wednesday, and we're paying all of the costs associated with that. So housing, meals, transportation, there's all kinds of printing costs. There are costs associated with, there's like just a reevaluation cost of, I think, $3,500 that you're required to pay. So that's a pretty big chunk of money. Part-time SRO, we essentially just moved that into the administrative budget, but that's $24,500. I don't know if you talked about that previously or not. And then the rest of the stuff, these are just kind of big highlights. So we added a full-time additional art teacher this year, which is great because we were able to add more classes, and that requires just more money for more supplies with more kids. We've kind of been burning through the budget a little bit. Their English teachers, with some of the new courses, they wanted some additional money for professional development. Wellness, just some of our equipment is starting to become old and worn out. We wanted to replace some of that and some new supplies. Mastery Manager, that is a web-based assessment program that we currently have. So teachers are able to create a test, and then they're able to give kids like a Scantron that the kid uses to fill out the answers to the test. They scan that, and then it collates all the information, communicates the grade directly to PowerSchool. So that's been a pretty cool feature that we've had that allows you to reduce the amount of time that you spend on kind of the logistics of assessment and more time on kind of the creating a good assessment, thinking about the results of the assessment. And so this is, teachers have been creating their own tests, but for $4,400 we can get access to, it's the Northwest Educational Associates bank of questions, and this is across different subject areas. It's 69,000 different questions, so teachers can go in and pull different questions that are aligned to state standards, to the Common Core. It also allows them the functionality to be able to take with a lot of the existing textbooks that we have. They come with those come with item banks too. We currently aren't able to load those into Mastery Manager, but by purchasing this, it allows us to do that. So math and foreign language have been using Mastery Manager quite a bit, and so they agreed to kind of try this out. If this is something that other departments really see expanding, I would probably try to move this into my administrator budget in future years. But that's an exciting tool. And then in math, looking to get some TI Inspire calculators for some of our CP math classes, along with that idea of supporting students who might be struggling somewhat, and then replacing our calculus textbooks, and then just keeping up with increases in enrollment for textbooks. Same social studies there, it's increasing, keeping up with enrollment, and then looking at the Living Locally course. In science, we did in conjunction with central office, did an analysis of the chemicals that we had, and we need to dispose of some of the chemicals that we've had there for a while, and so there's some costs associated with that, and then costs associated with new textbooks. And then we're talking about freshman transition, trying to make sure that we have a little bit of additional money there to support that.
Foreign language, Dr. Brown. At what point are we going to look at reviving that foreign language offering?
By foreign language offering, what do you mean?
So right now we offer Latin, French, Spanish, and German. We've been offering Spanish, French, and German since I was in school. So, and okay, I think there needs to be some analysis there, but has there been, and I know there has, but could you fill us in on what the thought is with Mandarin and other more
So we've had conversations about the possibility of adding a non-Western language. I've had some interest also in the idea of adding sign language. I would like to look at doing that at some point. The size high school that we are, 5 languages, I need to think about whether or not we could justify the enrollment. If we had 1,600 or 1,800 kids, then I think you have the enrollment to be able to have 5 languages. And all of our languages right now, we're experiencing success with them. So yes, that's definitely something that we're looking at and considering. I don't have a quick answer for you.
Is it an answer? Is the answer, adding or replacing? So, I mean, I'm not asking you to commit to that. It's just, the utilization and
I'm
the
more of a
interest.
fan of adding than replacing, but then you start to get to, do we have the enrollment to justify something? As an example, building something like a Mandarin Chinese, that's not something that you can suddenly have a full-fledged Mandarin Chinese program. That's something you have to build gradually over time. So very interested in that. I mean, I was a foreign language teacher, and so I love the idea of expanding foreign language offerings. My experience, I added Mandarin Chinese at the middle school where I worked. A lot of it comes down to having the right person, and having people who really are interested in doing it. So, yes, I'm interested in looking at that long term, but I don't have any. I don't know that I have. More
Well,
than
you don't
that
have
figured
plans to
out
do it now, but
No.
I mean, the time is right 5 years ago, so if you could look at it, and
Yet.
that'd be awesome for next year.
Yep.
Thanks.
I don't see us doing it next year, but like.
No, I understand,
next
but
year.
have a report on what, what your thoughts are
Yep.
and what your plan might be, because it's obvious that you're thinking much more innovatively about the core program
Yep.
and the elective program that you're building, which is really
Trying to.
encouraging.
Yep.
So, thanks.
Perry,
Thank
is the, I'm gonna get to you, Brad. I'm a little baffled by the other line. The, the, on
Other
the budget,
expenses.
the $70,000.
That is SRO and NIAC.
So, okay, so these things are in that.
Yes. These are not in addition to what you're seeing.
Okay.
This is me. I tried to highlight to provide a little more definition around places where there was more of an increase. So 32.5 and 24.5 are included in the other line under administrative.
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm not sure why we wouldn't wanna put those line items on here as opposed to having another line that's so large, just so that we demystify it a little bit for the public.
Well, it's in the details on it.
Yeah, but she's saying,
On
the
the
people are
budget.
gonna, if they get to this point, just give them the answer so it takes away the question.
I'm not objecting to what's there, I'm just objecting to the presentation, that,
Yep.
that if those line items were on here, instead of such a large lump sum in the other column, I think it would be perceived more favorably.
That would be great.
Right, it's not that easy to do, because these accounts have to line up with the state reporting accounts and things like that. So every line item there has a specific, very complicated, which we don't show, account number and whatever. So these lines are designed to accommodate things such as, I mean, the SRO we can find a place for it in a different area or something, but it's like the NIASC, a one-year expense. So that's why this is somewhat of a complex budget document, I understand, but it has lots of pages. But if you go back to the high school detail on this, it is there. So I know what you're saying, but this is just an executive summary, it's not the budget itself.
Right, I know, it's just that
But I mean-
a lot of people, if they're gonna look at this, and they're not gonna go to that level of detail.
No, I recognize that. I mean, I totally recognize that, but that's the nature of, what's that?
Can you just put it in a little parentheses next to the word other? Not break it out into other line
That's an idea.
items?
This
includes. Just this includes,
Or just
blah, blah.
SRO and,
just SRO.
Yeah.
and
I just think it would,
Asterisk, so there's a little footnote
would
at the
help.
bottom of the page.
Yeah.
But could we also, could you provide a better, I missed the whole 32 NEASC, someone coming in.
Yep. So that's the NIASC site visit.
Yeah.
That's in March of 2015. So it's part of the NIASC reaccreditation process.
It's to be
What is
accredited.
Oh.
New England
To get
Association of
accreditation for the
Schools and
school.
Colleges. So
Uh-huh.
every 10 years we go through a reaccreditation process. The first part of that process is we do a big internal self-study against a set of standards, and then we have an exterior group of educators from across New England. It's a group of 16 people. Come and they spend a Sunday through a Wednesday here in the district, going into the high school, and they interview all kinds of people and go to classes, and we are responsible for paying all of the costs associated with that. So it's 16 people staying in hotels from Sunday through Wednesday, paying for them, their transportation, reimbursements. There's all kinds of printing costs associated with that, et cetera, et cetera.
This is a one-time fee, right?
It happens every 10 years.
10
Yeah.
years, so it just came up.
Yep.
And the
So-
$44,000 reduction on the foreign language salaries, that is?
$4,000 reduction.
Changes faculty.
Okay.
Are you
Anything else?
still going, or are you?
So just my quick final thoughts, I know I'm over my time, I apologize for that. It's been a very busy year, but very exciting things happening. I think the NIASC self-study, I want to continue to highlight that. I think that's going to be in the site visit, those are big milestones for improvement for the high school, and that we are trying to make sure that we ensure that we have a top-flight high school that serves all of our students. Anything else?
I just have a quick question about some of the interdisciplinary offerings, and that this is sort of a logistics question to
Yep.
make sure that they're well received.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, have you, how will they count towards like the graduation requirements? Like students have to have math, you know, so many
Yep.
credits in math and stuff like that. So when you've got those interdisciplinary ones,
Yep.
will they sort of count as half of each? Or?
Yep, so it depends on the course. So for example, the freshman humanities class, that's 2 periods. So it's English, so that counts for your English and your social studies freshman class. The interdisciplinary on the senior end, the maritime studies, that's a semester long, but that's 2 periods also. So that's your English, your senior English, and your could be your senior science. And then things like the molecular gastronomy, that could be your wellness credit, since that's within foods. And then obviously theater arts counts towards the fine and performing arts. Computer science counts towards the technology requirement. So yes.
Just because, you know, if they can make sure that they fit those specific requirements, they'll be better.
And that's one of the things we talked about, is making sure that where we can, that we're building that into the existing requirements. Just because we have a lot of kids who are taking a lot of classes, and asking them to take one more class in addition, they might not be as interested. But if they can take this instead of taking that, then that makes it more attractive, I think.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Joel Bates, Florence Sawyer School.
Page up and page down, in the lower right, the lower left-hand corner of the down.
Thanks. Well, good morning, everyone. So I'll start with what I would consider to be some of the highlights of our school improvement plan relative to the resources that our community provided through the budget. In terms of literacy, we were able to budget for and use the resources for and build a book room, expand the book room in our the Emerson wing, primarily serving grades 3 through 4, and this picture here in the Sawyer wing, serving K through 8. There are leveled books. Students can access on the left fiction and on the right nonfiction texts at or slightly above their instructional reading level, and the results from that have been pretty powerful and have helped us to expand our ability. You may recall we talked about the way that we've been looking at our literacy blocks, looking at a balanced literacy approach, and really making sure that while the content doesn't change, the academic content doesn't change, the academic content objectives don't change for the students, the way that they're able to access those texts are at where their reading level is, and research shows us that that's how to build comprehension skills that much, and fluency skills that much quicker. On the right, in terms of technology, we've been able to expand our access to technology, and that's a 7th grade class doing a collaborative assignment, writing together using the Chromebooks. We can bring the technology into the classroom. They don't have to go out. They can sign them out whenever they need it through our library, and being able to put that technology in their hands, and the speed, we've talked about Chromebooks in the past, the speed that they can get up and running and get into an assignment and access it from the cloud has been very powerful. In mathematics, Lorraine asked the question about special education, and one of the choices that we made was in looking at our resources in terms of bringing in a mathematics specialist. And she's working with teachers and students. She has provided lessons for the teachers. She meets with all of the teachers in their common planning times. She's working with specific groups of kids. She's working with groups of kids in PLUS. We've spoken about PLUS in the past, our approach to PLUS. we're just going through our winter Ames web testing, and the results are very encouraging. There's some additional excitement around mathematics. She's hosting a family math night in March 25th. That's the first experience we've had with that at the Florence Sawyer School, and looking forward to having everyone come in for that and talk about math and how students approach math and how parents can support their children in mathematics. I'll go into the school improvement goals shortly, but our fourth goal is always to communicate school goals and initiatives to the school community. Our newsletter is a large, comprehensive community offering of things going on and information. And we've limited that to once a month just because it is so cumbersome. It goes out digitally, there are hard copies available. It's also posted on our website. To supplement that, and really, an approach that I stole from Perry, to give full credit where it's due, is to put out a weekly or semi-weekly FSS happenings. Our technology allows us to do that through School Messenger. For me to write a quick one-page email, things that are going on, things you might want to be aware of, things that we might want to call our parents' attention to, and that's been pretty positively received. We have a Twitter feed now, which we're 81 followers now, and that's an opportunity to not only put out some information, things that might be coming up, but real-time happenings and pictures as well. And the nice thing about the Twitter feed is that the item follows us now. So oftentimes I'll put a tweet out there and it'll get retweeted, so it goes out to the community, and it works just as well as a press release, because I'll then get a phone call from formerly the Bolton Common. I met with a reporter from the Bolton Independent, the new paper, about some things that are going on that came out through that. So that's been a nice device. Our relationship with the press, as I said, is one that we continue to expand. We have, fortunate to have community members as part of our school council as well, and try to keep a good working partnership with our community, and expanding our relationship with BATCO, the cable access company. In terms of our school improvement plan, our goals are in process right now. It's for FY15 and FY14. Our goals are to look at the kinds of programming that we have, to personalize it for students, to give students an opportunity to continue to grow in the areas that we consider strengths, to grow in the areas where they need additional support or remediation. To continue to look at the available technologies so that they can support our mission. To make sure that students come to school in a physically and emotionally safe environment, and to make sure always that we are in partnership with our community, with our parents, that our goals are clear and understood, and so that we can have the kind of vital feedback loop that we feel is essential to our success. So what we're looking at in terms of our school improvement plan and the initiatives that you see in our budget, in terms of personnel, we're looking at expanding the model, as Tracy mentioned, for special education, looking at, in our case, grades 3 through 5. And the reason being, we feel that this is an area where having a teacher work with a particular grade level and the students in that grade level, we have an opportunity to really build the relationship in a different way. The services that students need will continue to be met as they are now. But it changes the approach in terms of having that special educator work with the grade level team as part of the team, always there in the common planning times, and focusing on that grade level of students. In addition, we're looking at expanding our stipends for new enrichment projects. Our new vocal music teacher has designed an offering of a select choir next year, which would be a complement to our jazz band. Students at Florence Sawyer School have the option of general music or chorus or band. And so this would be for those students that are engaged by vocal music and want to take that to the next level, much as our jazz band does right now.
Joel, is it like an audition type thing or a selection process?
I think if it needs to go that way, it certainly will. Right now we're not sure how many kids would be interested in it, so she'll work with the number of kids that she can effectively manage.
And how do you feel about a selected group of kids at that age?
Well, I think it comes down to making sure that we have something for those that are truly passionate about it. It works for the jazz band, which is a similar process, and the nice thing about the audition piece is that whether it's our athletic coaches or our extracurricular coordinators, if it comes down to that kind of thing where cuts have to be made,
there's another option.
There is another option, and it's also middle school, so it's
okay.
You're not at this point yet, but these are the kinds of things that you want to do,
Perfect.
From year to year to get to the point where you might make.
Any thought of adding DI to that list? Destination Imagination?
Well, that's certainly current enrichment projects. That's part of our
There's no
current
stipend
package.
Currently, correct?
The coordinator for the DI program
Okay.
has a stipend.
I think
But
back
the
in the day,
coaches-
coaches used to get
Right.
stipends, and now they no longer do, and it would, I don't know, it'd be a nice time to think about reinstituting that.
Yeah, we haven't had the demand from the staff necessarily to coach the teams. It's we've had the stipends available for.
I know there's been a need for coaches.
There has been, yeah.
And maybe if there was a stipend, maybe that would incentive you to want to get back involved. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, we from that we have a healthy line item for stipends available for the different programs that we have, and sometimes the programs run and sometimes the programs don't. We're gonna pilot the art club in the last trimester of the year, and that's going to take the place of the stipend for our debate club, which didn't run this year.
Okay.
Just because our debate coordinator is currently teaching in Stowe, and so logistically it's not going to work for her this year. We're going to try to bring that
Are we
back.
going to try to bring this?
Debate, yes.
Okay.
Yep. We're also going to try to bring back our chess club, and we've had interest in looking at the junior robotics, the Lego robotics club, and there's a lot of interest and excitement around that.
That's exciting.
So in terms of the non-salary budget highlights, you'll see that for the most part, our FY15 projections are less than they've been in FY14. Part of that is due to, a lower enrollment that we have at Florence Sawyer projected for FY15. Where there are exceptions to it are in the areas of, literacy and looking at supporting our the writing. And in the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about that piece of it. I'll just go there now. So you'll see that in grade 6 instructional supplies, it's zeroed out, and we've moved more of that into textbooks, and that is consistent with our professional development as well, where there's an increase, and that has to do with giving the teachers the professional development and the resources they need, so that in a very real and tangible way, all teachers are writing teachers, writing in their content. Math teachers are writing teachers, social studies teachers are writing teachers, and having the professional development to support them in being able to support the students in their writing, and continue to expand our focus on that. We have an increase in supplies in art this year, and part of that is to support the art club. Part of it is to support our plus programs, and part of it is to support some of the other projects that we've just typically drawn from the resources from art. You know, with it, and so I said this year we had to go in with a conscious approach to budgeting more specifically for that. The other piece is expanding our three-dimensional art for students, particularly in the lower grades. With kindergartners, for example, this week just started making pinch pots, and so having the clay available for them, the glazes available for them, so that they can have those projects. We'll be unveiling in the next couple of weeks our 8th grade three-dimensional totems, which are clay sculptures that the 8th graders have made that will be around the school. Lastly, response to intervention and the additional monies that we've put into the budget for Plus and supporting the Plus groups. For the different types of things that they're working on. I think we've spoken about Plus in the past, but making sure that they have the resources that they need moving forward. Yes.
Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
I was just curious about the level book library. What budget line item was that under, and is there money going forward to continue building it?
Yeah, there is, but it's coming more out of the general instructional supplies for the teachers at this point. The seed money that we had in FY14 was for literacy under the textbook line item. We committed $9,000 to that. So supporting that moving forward would be in, for example, the technology line item. We're supporting Reading A to Z, which are, or it may come out as RAS Kids. It is under instructional technology software. And that allows us an opportunity to, there are reproducible books that we can put into the book room. The grade levels will continue to expand their classroom libraries as well.
So there's classroom level collections as well as the centralized?
There are. So every classroom will have the collections that they have in the classroom, and then you can supplement that by going to the book room. Kids can shop for the daily cafe model of balanced literacy, and I would go to the book room and I might select as a teacher, level 8, level 9, level 10 paired books in fiction and nonfiction. And spread those out among a reading group that I might have in the classroom, because they're not just books, they're sets of books at that same level.
Do you have multi-copy sets?
We do, yeah. They're all multi-copy sets. 4 to 7 copies of each book.
Great, thank you.
I'm just going to throw this out. I don't know if there's any opportunity for things like the clay, the art supplies, and a stipend for DI, if those might be seen as enrichment kinds of things that we might be able to enlist the help of PAC or donations committee to help fund those things. I don't know if they're still looking for ways to help, but that just strikes me as something that might be an opportunity.
The clay as a resource is part of the is part of the curriculum. So
maybe that one wouldn't work.
That wouldn't necessarily, but your point is well taken, that looking at ways that they could do that, and we're grateful for the support that we get from our PAC and from our donations committee. Donations auctions coming up in March. To look at those.
That's just an idea that might be worth exploring.
How was PAC?
How was PAC?
We had a changeover. Last year there was a big, is everything all staffed up and moving and?
I think so. Alana Sear, our assistant principal, serves on the board.
It is, yep. They're very
Good.
active. They have a lot of new members, a lot of new parents.
they're in the midst of planning for another fundraising challenge.
Oh,
We
good.
did one last year, it was very successful. We focused on spelling last year. This year, they're working with Heather Haynes, our math specialist,
Yep.
in order to develop a math challenge this year for our
Excellent.
students. So we're very excited about that.
Maybe that's a question for Michael and George, is there something preventing us legally from having a donations committee fund a stipend that goes to a teacher? Probably.
You can do it, as long as it's paid, as long as it's donated to the district, separate to the school committee, and then paid through our payroll system.
Right.
Okay.
And they're a 501c3.
And the amount is in accordance with our contract, right, the May contract.
Okay. So, good.
I
Terry?
might have missed this, but the reduction in teacher salaries, so the $100,000 is because of,
I was gonna ask that same
Oh,
question.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
It's a
that's
big
okay.
number.
It's enrollment driven
It is.
primarily. We
Okay.
have, excluding preschool, K through 8 right now, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 751 students. We're projecting 720 next year.
okay.
Any other questions for Joel?
I just have, a question on that. So if you look, I always like reductions, right? But if enrollment goes down this year, goes back up next year, this kind of, to rehire, is that a difficult thing? You can't keep somebody if they don't have a class, I guess, but is that looked at the cost of having people come and go on a yearly basis? Or do you project out for many years and you can see what's happening 2016, 2017,
Sure.
2018?
We do to the degree that we can with, we work closely with Town Hall in getting the numbers of 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds,
Mhm.
but probably better than I do that Bolton's a town in flux, and it's hard sometimes to predict those numbers. But to the degree that we can, we try to take that into consideration.
We also would look to shift, correct me if I'm wrong, shift grade assignments before letting teachers go.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if there is a particularly large class, that teacher might have to move.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Because rehires, I have to believe, are expensive.
sure.
Yeah.
The benefit,
Yeah.
the nice thing is we are a regional school district though too, so
In
so there's,
Portland.
sure. Yep,
So somebody from here might have gone to Hale or something like that.
yeah,
Somewhere.
it happens.
Yeah, you have the
frequently.
luxury of having a pretty big district to be able to shuffle people around if
Needed. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. John, you're up.
Good morning. I'd also like to introduce Laura Friend, assistant principal, and Sharon Pock are here. She's a parent of the students in our school and the middle school, as well as a member of the school council. So,
I should have said Sean is with the Mary Robinson's group.
John, you just
Down.
use page up or page down.
Down.
Lower left-hand corner.
okay. We've spoken about this quite a bit in our nighttime school committee meetings, but our school improvement plan really has five goals, and I won't read them all, but what's in bold are the key concepts of each one. So collaboration is our first goal, whether it's student or teacher collaboration, focusing on that. Varied learning opportunities, whether it's plus time, differentiation, or enrichment, that is the essence of our second goal. The third goal centers around critical thinking skills, trying to work on strategies and curriculum that works on divergent thinking, critical thinking skills, higher order thinking skills. And our fourth goal goes around literacy and communication, whether it's written or verbal. So that goes to a lot of our balanced literacy where students are talking and discussing about text, as well as things like narratives and opinion pieces in their writing. And the last goal is centered around technology. So whether it's technology for students or staff efficiency, so like Google Docs or Chromebooks and smart boards. So those are our 5 goals. The successes and updates towards those goals that we've had over the past year really go, get my notes here. they're all captured around our continued academic success. The last 4 years, we've met our AYP goals and continue to be a level 1 school, so obviously we want to keep focusing our energy on maintaining that. The collaboration and critical thinking and communication, although those are 3 different goals, a lot of them are a lot of times they're tied together. And we've had 4 years of work with balanced literacy and outside consultants. In that, we've trained 9 different teachers to be lab classroom teachers to support professional development within the staff, as well as develop units of instruction. We've had over 15 classroom visits with teachers from our school visiting each other to enhance their instruction, but we've also had other schools and other school districts come and do very structured classroom visits to see our model of instruction and give us feedback too. So that's been a wonderful opportunity for the school. Also, the math, our math teacher, as well as some of our kindergarten teachers, have worked on collaboration and critical thinking skills through teaching courses through MECA. They've been teaching standards of mathematical practice and intervention classes for the district and for our MECA collaborative districts. Varied learning opportunities. This is our 3rd year of our enrichment group. The adult you see in that picture is Patty Harris, who has worked closely with Laura Friend to organize our enrichment opportunities during school and after school. That's a hands-on learning, doing a sync and float activity. But we've had over 250 students in the last 2 years participate in 30 different sessions. And we've had 175 parent volunteers volunteer not only for that, but throughout the school day. So that continues to grow and be a wonderful learning opportunity to extend for students. This year we haven't had too many snow days, which is great, because last year when their enrichment opportunities got canceled because of snow, they were disappointed, believe it or not. So as part of these different opportunities, we have the Peaceful Playground that we purchased this year that students and staff are implementing, and the protocols as well as the materials for that. Technology integration, we now have 8 smart boards across the school. We're adding document cameras. We added a lot of Chromebooks this year, and those are spread out and open all day long, used for instruction, differentiation, assessment, creation of content. So, and again, staff has, particularly our kindergarten staff, has taught courses within the district and out on things like using Pinterest to do planning. So the budget implications based on the school improvement plan for the coming year is we're continuing our work with balanced literacy with the focus on writers workshop. That will be dwindling down. It has over the last couple of years in terms of the amount of time and resources as we come to full implementation of readers workshop, writers workshop. The Common and Common Core aligned materials, Joel talked a lot about book rooms. We've built up our book rooms over the last couple of years, so now it's maintaining and continuing to add nonfiction material and replacing older material that's in there. Also, resources to continue to build the writing resources to align with Common Core, because they're much different than they were in the past. So. Another area that's been added to the budget this year is the 5th grade music will be band will be going to the Great Eastern Music Festival, which is really, when we talk about high expectations and real world application, this is a chance for the band to go out and perform and to be judged against their peers and standards and to get that opportunity to put in practice what they are learning. So that's a great opportunity. We've started a jazz band at the 5th grade level too. I think I talked about it last time. It is, students have to perform to be in it, but all students who performed and tried out have made it, and it's just an extra opportunity for them to do a different type of music, and for students who really have a passion in that area.
How many kids do you have in the band, you know? Roughly.
I think about 15.
That's great.
Yeah, and they performed at the recent winter concert after much consternation of Mr. Rossley, and it was just fantastic. It was fantastic.
That's great.
One shift you'll see, in the past it had just been long-standing at Murray Rowlandson where the supplies, like pencils and color paper and stuff, had been in the office account line, and so we shifted that to be where it should appropriately be in the general instructional supplies, just as it is with the other other schools. And one other addition on the in the budget this year is 5 radios to increase school safety. So we have a few walkie-talkies. Like one is kind of fading, and we need a few more to spread out among grade levels. It also helps if students say we have some severe peanut allergies that can travel with them, so they get a direct communication with the nurse and things. So, so in essence, those are the major highlights of our successes and our ongoing improvement plan and the budget implications this year. Any questions?
Any questions for Sean?
Again, in the salaries, have you had any increase in your attendance or enrollment?
We will have a slight increase next year with our kindergarten, which is, we had to decrease this year by 0.5 because we had decreased enrollment in kindergarten.
Okay, so,
And we're,
okay, so that's what we're seeing in the salaries, is your kindergarten
Yes.
and your classroom aides?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Kevin LaGrasse with Center School? Sorry, I have that on. Yep, totally. Patrick Perkins with the Music Mermaid, sorry about that.
Page up, page down, lower left on the.
Got it. All right, good morning, everyone. Want to talk about some of our highlights in the current school improvement plan and the progress that we're making. First involves technology. And I'm very proud of the efforts teachers have made to incorporate technology into their practice. Google Apps has grown substantially this year. And almost just about 100% of our teachers now have created their own individual class websites. In addition, every student has a Google Apps account. This allows students to share work with each other and to share work with teachers. That can happen during the school day and after school hours because it's internet-based. And this is really important. It allows teachers to actually conduct online conferencing with kids at any time. For example, an ELA teacher can take a piece of a student's work, analyze it, provide comments, highlight certain portions of the paper. Students can respond to that teacher with their comments, and then make revisions. And this opportunity to provide feedback to students is probably the #1 thing that teachers can do to improve student achievement. In terms of our interventions, 3 years ago we created a model to provide intense interventions to students really in the areas of ELA and math. And although we were fairly successful with the model, one of the downsides of the model was we were only impacting about 30% of our students. So this year we have reworked that model. We have created a period within the 6-day rotation where on B days we provide intervention and or enrichment to every student in the school. All of our teachers are involved, all of our paraprofessionals are involved, and the interventions that we provide are leveled. And I really believe it's this approach that we have taken over the last several years of looking at students, really trying to understand what their needs are, creating intervention for those needs. That has really helped us to make our AYP over the last couple of years maintain the level 1 status that we have. The Learning Lab model, that was part of last year's of the FY14 budget. In that budget, we were able to add an additional special education teacher. This gives us, or gave us, the opportunity to have a special ed teacher on each grade level team, and this change has been significant. It provides a much more manageable caseload for teachers, special education teachers, and thereby instruction has improved, their knowledge of the students has improved, communication with regular education teachers has improved, and I'm really looking forward to see how our special education students are going to progress over the next couple of years under this model. Some new initiatives in our draft plan. Great schools really reach out and try to build a partnership with parents. And to this end, Burbank has, over the last couple of years, we have tried to bring in presenters from various groups, the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center being one, the Middlesex Partnership for Youth, the Worcester County District Attorney's Office. And these presentations, they've always been well delivered and a great message, but unfortunately parents are busy and it's hard for them to get out sometimes to another event at school, and attendance typically has been low. We're trying to address this problem by taking a different approach. Instead of inviting parents to the building, we're going to be inviting parents to the website. We are going to we hope to produce different presentations on a variety of topics: suicide prevention, internet safety, cyberbullying, the importance of nutrition, exercise, sleep, this type of thing. And the idea is we'll have presentations on the website. Parents can view these presentations at their leisure, and we'll have additional links for folks that want to delve deeper into a particular topic. And we're hoping that this is a more effective approach to getting information in the hands of parents.
Can I ask a question, please? Are these presentations that, and I'm sorry, are they professionals or are they school-driven?
It's going to be, we hope it's going to be both. We're exploring now, trying to put some together. We're using a variety of resources. So I think part of our school council will have input into exactly what goes into the presentation. We may be pulling videos already, presentations already made from other sources.
You know, one of the things I love about you is that you're so innovative and you're always thinking forward, and I love reading your communications that come out even though I don't live in your town. But the things that Patrick's talking about now really have broader appeal across the district. And I don't want to interrupt your progress, but it would be great to see a year and see where you go with this and maybe broaden it district-wide, because there's a lot of appeal there. Plus, if it's something that if it's built and presented the way I think you want to do it, it could actually have more draw for external. You could be doing a greater service for others too. Yeah. But that's great stuff.
Well, thank you. I'd love to take credit for it, but it's our teachers and our school council that comes up with these great ideas.
I'll give it to Mr. Wood. He'll take the credit. He deserves it. He hired you.
Our students, you know, they're all hyped up about technology, and you know that as parents. And their use of technology is, they've grown up with it. And, you know, a lot of our kids, maybe most of our kids, have internet access whenever they're not in school. And as a result, they're very involved, some of them on social media sites. And whenever we talk about it at the council, it seems another site has been created: Snapchat, Instagram, Ask.fm, Facebook. The list probably goes on and on. And it's important, I think, as educators and as adults, that we understand what these sites are all about. And what we're going to try to do is, we're in the midst of developing a survey which will be given to students, and the idea is that we're going to try to find out more about their habits and their experience with these social media sites. We're going to take this information, we're going to look at the possible benefits and the potential dangers of these sites, and share this with parents, and probably one of our website information links in the future.
Yeah, then maybe you could have the students do online presentations about how to use this stuff.
That's a great idea for us.
Right, how to, yeah. Our positive culture group, I'm especially excited about this because this is coming from students, directly from students. In fact, students have approached Julia Hutton, our student council advisor, and they said they want to bring people together and make people feel positive and stop people from being negative towards each other. And to do that, they want to put this group together. This is just being discussed in the last couple of weeks at school, but it's going to be exciting to see where this group, the direction this group takes. I think it's an awesome opportunity for our students to learn a lot about leadership skills and what it takes to affect change. So it'll be interesting, as I say. We'll have more to share on this down the road. In terms of the budget overall, we have a very, very little increase comparing the line items in the current budget to what is being proposed. I want to talk about some of the lines that have increased. Instructional supplies has gone up about $2,400, and really this is due to a couple of things that were not in last year's budget. We used the Sadler Oxford vocabulary books, and the 7th grade books were left out of last year's budget, so I've included it into this year's budget, and I wanted to highlight that. And we want to pilot a workbook in our 6th grade math program through Triumph Learning, and this will really be used during our plus classes and our intervention groups, and that's $1,600 for a class set. In terms of our music line, we've got a great, I think, a great music program. The work that Mr. Rossley does at the elementary school and Mr. Gilbert at the middle school. In fact, right now as we speak, we've got 3 students auditioning for the Central District Band at North Middlesex. This is a highly competitive group, and if history repeats itself, we'll be well represented in this band again this year. But we have multiple students that want to play a bass clarinet. We have one, and we're looking for an additional one, and that's really driving that line item up. And finally, we want to incorporate a field hockey unit into a physical education program, and I'm requesting funds for that purpose as well. So these requests and all the requests in the budget are really to support the teachers, the work the teachers do to help students reach their full potential.
I have a question.
Yes.
George, do you know if, I know that all of the schools have some instruments that they can loan the kids. And I had heard that, and I'm not gossip, but I had heard that your school might have, or one of the middle school in Stowe has a lot of instruments that could be loaned but aren't being currently loaned. And my question really is there a way to do that within the district perhaps, rather than have this poor man have to go out and spend his good people's money, but at least to get more of an interest? I mean, it may become a pain in the neck because you're going to have a central loan system, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the exact numbers, but I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, specifically about it, but I mean, we do have a number of instruments that are owned by the school, but I have to look into it a little bit more, but a lot of them have been donated to the school through the Stowe Friends of Music. That's where most of those have come from. They haven't been bought by district funds.
So they wouldn't be able to be leveraged? I mean, once they're in, they're in.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I say. I think most of them are being used.
But even at the high school level, because I know my son plays, he borrows a bass clarinet, and there's another bass clarinet that's there. Not that I want to take Tom's instruments away, but if there's got to be a way to leverage what we have.
Sure. Or you could buy more. You personally.
I'm not going. That's your up. It's your turn. I made a commitment 2 years ago.
I'm not aware. I think to put it. I'm not aware of a lot of surplus equipment that's not used.
But I think it's something to look into. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just saying we should.
And then the band could drive them around.
I'm looking for innovative solutions to help these people
I support
on
that.
your behalf.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going for your whiteboards next.
Any other questions for Patrick? No? Wow, that was easy.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can start.
Now it's time for Kevin McDowell.
I was all prepared to say good morning, but it looks like we're closing in on the afternoon, so good afternoon, everybody. Left-hand side. Sorry? Distinguished, more distinguished, but
Okay.
probably that's what I was looking for.
My daughter
November.
Thank you, got it. So good afternoon. Thank you once again for inviting me to speak about Center School's budget and the successes and highlights that we've accomplished over the course of this year. I'd like to welcome Karen Donato, our assistant principal here today. Thanks for joining us in support of Center School. So just starting off, we have our mission statement that was developed just prior to the arrival of Karen and I as a new administration. So what we did in our first year together as a staff was we really dissected each part of the mission statement to identify the activities that exist to support these pieces of the the mission statement. And what we found was there were some specific places where we were lacking in activities and really wanted to grow to support our mission. I mention this because there's a connection to both some of the activities that are in our school improvement plan, but also some of the budget drivers as well. So our school improvement plan, without reading through each and every one of the goals, really highlights working towards using all forms of assessment to drive instruction and to inform instruction, talking about enhancing the quality of instruction of all students, taking a look at our technology, which in our brand new building is quite extensive, and making sure that we utilize that to better communicate, but also to enhance learning as well. And then finally, to make sure that we have a safe environment for learning to take place at the Center School. So some of the highlights and successes of this year. As you probably recall, we included a half-time preschool position last year, or for fiscal year 14. That's been a great program. A lot of wonderful feedback from parents, kids, staff members alike. The picture that you saw on the previous page shows some older students reading to one of our preschoolers. I don't know if you noticed, but the student actually looks like he's really engaged in the reading, which is really important. And they do love that piece of it. Our music program is located past the preschool room, and it's quite a walk to get there, but it's a perfect opportunity for our older students to interact with the younger ones. So it's been a really positive experience so far. The bucket filling program has been fully implemented this year thanks to our assistant principal, Karen Donato. It's really been embraced by all of the teachers, the parents, and more importantly, the students. I've joked before this committee that even I have to be reminded of the bucket filling program, as I might say to students, oh, so what poor choice did you make? And they'll say, I dipped in someone's bucket. So I think that just kind of brings to the front, that kids are really living this and embracing it as well. Each morning we recite a bucket filler's pledge, which is just a nice piece of our morning announcements. I've also mentioned in front of this committee before that we were able to accomplish in our schedule this year 3 days in a 6-day cycle, whereby we have our specialists available to do plus groups as well as our classroom teachers. So trying to really build on the resources that we have and capitalize on those as much as possible. So we've had our PE teachers and our art teachers and our health teachers really jumping in to support learning for students in areas where some specific skill work needs to be had. So we're excited about that. 21st century schools, so we have all sorts of technology. I'm amazed every single day as we walk through the hallways to see how technology is being utilized, not as a replacement from old technology, but really enhancing the instruction. So we're excited about that. Our school has been noted as the greenest building in the Commonwealth, both the architectural piece of that as well as some of the other components involved. But we also know that we have to live more green in what we do too. So there's some implications for that in terms of reaching out to some of our local community members. We've had 75 fourth graders sign up for band this year. I think, like Sean, we started the Great East Music Festival last year for our fifth graders. They performed really well, got a gold medal, and I think that really contributes to the increase in the number of kids who are interested in wanting to be a part of the band. We have students from NRHS Life Skills Program helping out with our recycling program. We have 4 senior volunteers who come in regularly to help out in various aspects of our school. And as part of our school improvement plan, reaching out to community members and really increasing also some of the clubs and enrichment activities that are available at Center School. So last year we started a Lego program, and we'll be doing that again in the spring. This year we have the science program or club that has started. We had over 188 kids interested in that, so we know that that has really been a successful and appealing program, golf, basketball, and flag football. And then, of course, we still have our SPTO enrichment activities.
Did you skip over balanced literacy?
Oh, yes, not intentionally. So this year we are piloting balanced literacy. It's a model that Mary Rowlandson has implemented. I think they're on year 3. They've reached out to a resource, the Teaching Alliance resource within the state, to help build a program that meets their needs. We recognize at the Center School that there are some areas that we need to grow in terms of literacy, and so one of the things that we're looking at is more of a balanced literacy approach. So several of our teachers in grades 3 through 5 have worked to implement that, and that will continue for the next several years. And that has implications in terms of the budget drivers as well, which I can speak to.
Do you have a comparable level book library?
Yes. Center School and Pompo had, for years now, has always had a really healthy book library or for level readers. So Joel had talked earlier about how he had seed money to start that up. We didn't need the seed money, but you're going to notice that in the textbooks line item, leveled readers over the last several years has been a consistent item that has only increased slightly. So it's between $3,000 and $5,000 that we've asked for annually to make sure that we continue to build that up. We need 5 to 7 books per per title. So. In terms of new positions at the Center School, I know that earlier we spoke about the plan to change somewhat the model of kindergarten, and so that has implications for the increase in staffing, new kindergarten teacher, as well as instructional aid in the kindergarten. Our numbers and the interest suggest that we also need additional preschool programming, so that would require an additional preschool teacher and an instructional assistant as well. We've realized that over the last several years, we've done a great job with our literacy support. We have 2.5 literacy specialists. They've done a great job at doing direct service for kids and providing coaching, but we've really lacked in the area of having a math specialist, someone who can provide some really explicit instruction to kids who need that as a Tier 3 intervention, but also someone who can take a look at what we have for systems in place and can do some coaching during their free time. I'm sure George will speak to this a little bit later, but that position right now says 0.6. The other 0.4 of that would be shared with Hale, so that's a total of a 1.0, if that makes sense. We've taken a look at our needs for special ed as well, and so we've put in for a special educator for the 3 to 5 level. In terms of some of the budget highlights, you know that at a building-based budget, the majority of budget drivers lie within general instructional supplies, at least for our school, as well as textbooks and in our instructional technology. You'll notice that the majority of the increases are a result of the preschool program that was implemented both last year and certainly moving forward with a new preschool program. We have to account for some of those costs. It's to support the leveled readers for the implementation of balanced literacy. That's a really critical piece for making sure that kids have books at their instructional level and enough of them so that they're practicing the skills that were taught in a mini lesson. The increase, again, in the general instructional supplies is really due to increased enrollment, both the preschool program, and we're up about 25 students from last year. Our total numbers right now are 603, and that's not including what we would have with the new preschool program. Our art teacher, like Joel had mentioned, really has recognized the need to have clay throughout the grade levels. Right now it has only existed in grades 3 through 5. I'm sure I can speak as eloquently as he can about the various aspects of
Can you
clay.
talk about that though?
Yeah.
Because I saw it in the packet a couple of days ago, and I mean, I can try to figure it out, but I'd
Sure.
rather hear from your perspective what the value, I mean, and I don't question it, but I want to hear
Yeah.
what your
So,
advantages are.
you know, as we kind of all figured out, the Common Core standards have come into place, and those are clearly delineated for ELA and math, and we're hopefully going to expand upon those. Same is true with the art standards nationally too. So not necessarily tied into Common Core just yet, but they also have specific standards that they have to meet, and that's one of the emphasis that that's in their standards. So we're
It's
looking
not just
to
clay, the three-dimensional art is a big
exactly.
piece of the standard.
Kathy, did you hear that?
Yeah, right. High standards.
Wow.
But it is an increased cost. So in my line item, you'll see about $800 over the course of 3 years. My art budget has not really moved. The numbers have stayed pretty steady in terms of the cost. But this year it would be an additional $800 to support the use of clay. In terms of some of the resources in our library, we've increased the cost there as well, because one of our goals in our school improvement plan is to increase enrichment opportunities. I use the word enrichment, and certainly for me means more than just enrichment, meaning students who perform at a higher level, but enrichment meaning appealing to all interest levels as well. Our librarian is looking to implement a more reading enrichment program to be able to support some of those students who really require that level of instruction. And to do that, we also need additional books, a number of books per title. And then finally, a big budget driver for us is the professional development line item. The Teaching Alliance is a great support system that we'll utilize throughout next year, but it comes at a pretty hefty cost. It's a short-term cost, though. Once we're up and running, it's not something that we would need to utilize regularly. So it's a short-term cost in terms of pulling things together in an organized manner and then letting us move with that afterwards.
I'll start. I have a question on your general instructional supplies. While I understand you don't have much of an increase, I'm just wondering how it happens that your number is so much higher than all the other schools, but significantly higher. Like,
I have the highest number of students at any of the towns in terms of enrollment. I have 603. Joel, which is a pre-K to 8, has 750, which is only about a difference of 150. And so that may be part of it as well. I can't really speak to their individual budgets, but enrollment is the largest budget driver there. Additionally, last year when we had the preschool program, we hadn't accounted for that into our budget. So we pulled together the things that were necessary, and this year we're picking up on some of the areas that they need to grow in terms of resources and materials.
There's also still an accounting issue of where they account for different supplies. If you'll notice, his general office supplies is lower and than Florence Sawyer, for example. So there's still where people are buying what out of those accounts is still a little bit messy. We need to work out of this office and clean that up a bit in terms of what's in what.
Exactly.
but I mean, even with the K through 8 model in Florence Sawyer School with more students total than you have, their general instructional supplies are much significantly lower. Just
Yeah, I think it's really based on needs, and part of that is enrollment. I mean, I can certainly go into detail and look more closely and provide this committee with more information regarding that. But it's really about needs based at this point, and if you look for previous years, in comparison, it's really been in some cases lower than the other towns. So I think from year to year, it kind of jumps based on the specific needs at that given time. But again, it's hard for me to be able to speak specifically to.
It's like a combination. I mean, Florence Sawyer's 9,200 in general office and 42,000 so it might be cleaning up some of that.
Exactly, it's comparable. You'll notice that my general office supplies have been between 600 and 1,200 for the last 5 years, and other schools are much higher than that because at one point, all of their instructional supplies were sort of between both line items. And I think Sean spoke to that earlier about that adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I understand the preschool more?
Sure.
So, so the preschool costs the district money, and it's not self-sufficient, and preschool is mandatory that we supply it for special needs students, I understand that. And then when we add additional classes, are we adding them because we have an increase in the demand for the special needs students? Are we just extending our offering to the general public and absorbing that cost?
So in this particular year, as actually last year as well, we actually, for the population that we're trying to serve, we have an increase in demand based on the class that we have. So for example, we're looking at the number of intensive needs, special needs students, and we only have one classroom of that, and that's the classroom we're going to add at Center, because we have an addition of those students, and so that's the program that we have to add.
How many kids is that?
Right now it's 5 students, and so what we're trying to look at is whether or not we can either have a program that has 8 typical peers and 7 special needs, or 15 and 5, depending on how we staff it. The way we've staffed this particular class right now, it's designed to be an 8 and 7, but right now we only have 5 slated to go there because they're intensive needs classrooms, students.
And just remember from what we talked about earlier this morning, the typical peers portion, they do pay for themselves. And that's what the calculations we did and the tuition rates you approved.
So they do. So that was what
Yeah, the
I'm
typical
just having a
peers,
hard time understanding.
right, the ones who are tuitioning out, people who choose to come.
They're covering their
They are covering their
All right,
costs.
that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, have a great afternoon.
Okay, and last but of course not least,
Yeah,
Sure,
we end where we started, so to speak, with me. But in this instance, I'll be talking about the Hale Middle School. And this, our school improvement plan, we kind of ended the 3-year cycle and really revamped the whole thing over a couple of year process. Last year, we spent time reviewing and changing our core values and our mission statement to which to build a new plan this year. So just looking back at the plan that ended, so to speak, even though some of it does continue, we really was a successful plan. The first goal, as you see up there, I won't read them all to you. Saw many things happen in the school over 3 or even more years it was in place. And it's all over the place. It's from equipment. The whole school now has smart boards in every classroom. The Chromebook initiative that you've heard, every academic classroom. The Chromebook initiative you heard about from different people all morning is certainly alive and well at Hale. And it is a great, as Joel stated earlier, a great way for kids to interact with technology, get their hands on technology in a very easy way. You have them in front of you right now, and they light up real fast, unlike when we used to have more reliance on laptops themselves. So it really makes the teaching and learning aspects of them very good, and we certainly have a good start there. The use of our websites, all our teachers have had websites for a couple of years, and we're continuing to work on that and to make them even more viable in our new plan. But that was certainly an important part of our old plan that got us to where we were. Certainly we had a school climate in the old plan initiative, and we've done several different climate programs over the years of that plan, and added other additional activities at the school over the last few years that really allow kids to pursue their strengths outside the academic classroom. We have a very vibrant robotics program with 2 different robotics clubs running that are really oversubscribed. We've added different intramural sports and, of course, our regular interscholastic sports. These are all things that we think provide important aspects of our school culture that we're trying to build, and these are the types of things that are reflected in our new mission statement and core values. And lastly, the old plan, probably the key part of it was the physical environment. A lot of things were improved at the school over those years, but particularly the addition a year and a half ago now, or a little bit more than a year ago last summer, of our classroom AC. And all our academic classrooms have air conditioning now. And I cannot tell you what an impact that has been, or positive impact that's been on teaching and learning. It was a stove capital project of only just over $100,000, and they're very efficient units, so we've really seen no real increase of any substantial amount in our utility costs. And especially last year, when the last day of school was June 26th, it just made a huge difference. And though we often think it's only a few really hot days, and that's probably true, there are a lot of days where it's warm, and inside a school, especially with small windows, not the big windows you see here, but small windows that only open up for a few cubic feet of air, it just made all the difference in the world. So I think that's really probably the highlight of this plan. It was on the plan for several years, and we finally got it done, and it's really made a difference. I think everyone in the school would tell you that. So our new school improvement plan is still in draft form, so to speak, but it's really pretty much done. And some of the goals are familiar going forward, or just refocused. And as I say, they are built on the foundation of our core values and mission statement. And the first one is positive school climate, to continue to build those types of things. And we've had different ideas of how we're going to go about it. I think the highlight this particular school year has been the addition of our advisory program. We have an advisory program built on developmental design program that every student is assigned to an advisor. Every staff member has an advisory group of about 10 or 11 kids. Even myself, everyone has them. And I happen to have a 6th grade group. And we meet every A day for about 25 minutes at the beginning of the day, and we go through various activities. In the fall, the focus was on getting to know each other and different social things. And now we're on to more the bullying type of stuff, is, for lack of a better term, and student relationships. And it's really, really been successful. I think kids really enjoy it, and I think it's had some very positive impacts on the school culture. I think it gives us an opportunity to build on things. And it was already starting to think about it for next year, how we expand it into its second year, because obviously you can't do the same activities. This year, everybody's doing the same activities, 6, 7, 8 are all doing the same activities, because it's the first year. Next year, we're thinking about whether or not we repeat these activities with next year's 6th grade and have new activities for next year's 7th, 8th grade, just that type of thing. But that's really been a great aspect of it, and we are looking to expand out on that. Some things we want to do are parent seminars and other whole school presentations. We did a presentation earlier this year on getting along with each other through a theatrical approach. It was out of Plymouth State University, New Hampshire. I think I might have talked about it in one of my school council updates. It's about an hour-long show put on by high school students about, as I say, a theatrical performance about just relationships, and it was geared towards middle school kids. So most kids liked it. Some kids thought it was a little, but I think overall it had the message that in a way that they hadn't seen it. I think they're a little tired of being talked to. It's interesting, in my 6th grade advisory group, they don't feel bullying is an issue at all. And sometimes when relationship issues, and sometimes as you explain different ideas, oh yeah, maybe that. But we really have made an impact, I think, over the last few years with kids, that they really understand at least the concept. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because I think it probably does happen still. Kids still have trouble getting along from time to time. But they understand it. They understand why it's such an important issue. And I think we have made some good progress there. The other goals, we'd like to continue to expand our technology, obviously. Expand our Chromebooks, and whenever we can will be great, because they're always used. Our online presence, the staff websites are definitely becoming more fleshed out. And I think if you look at them, the growth we've seen at them over the last couple of years, some of our staff members do a phenomenal job where kids can really reference all their learning materials right on the website, teacher notes, class PowerPoint presentations, that type of thing. They can go back and review, just go to the website and take those PowerPoint presentations off it. So that emphasis is strong, and it'll continue to be that way. And also we'd like to put in some professional development opportunities for teachers as to how to teach with technology. What's the most efficient way? It's new for teachers too, using technology efficiently in the classroom. You're just rolling on a computer, it doesn't mean teaching with technology. Just displaying something on a smartboard isn't teaching with technology. How do we best teach with technology? Some of the things that Patrick talked about are great. We use, teachers at Hale have been using Google for a long time, really even before I was there. And it really is a great interactive opportunity for kids, and to continue to build the best ways to do that are something we'd like to do. Our last goal is one we talked a lot about at the school council. It talks a lot about communication and how we're going to talk about to everybody, keep everybody informed, and how we're going to make our curriculum instruction assessment practices the best they can be to make sure everybody's learning to their fullest capability. That's number one. It's kind of a blended goal, but also talk about that. Let parents know about how we're approaching that. Parents have a very clear idea of how we're approaching learning opportunities for their kids, our RTI program, that type of thing. We're looking at our master schedule again to see if we can do some things with that to further enhance our school day for kids. The next slide, sorry, two computers here. That's slightly wrong, Kevin. I did not, because in the base budget, the math position is listed in center, but we're looking at how we would spread it between the two schools so we can enhance our kids at K-8, much like in Bolton. So with the exception of that, there are no other new salary requests this year. Of course, our continuation of the program we piloted, I say last year, but early this year, last budget year, with our special education program, as Tracy said a couple hours ago, that has really worked out very, very well. It was a total transformation in Hale because we had 2 special ed teachers who both retired last year, coincidentally. So we had to add the new positions. We ended up adding 3 new special education teachers this year for each grade. So we started a new program with a whole new staff. And really, we've been able to hire some phenomenal people. I just see some great things happening in that area. And I think a lot of it is credit to the new approach. And our library was changed last year, as you recall, but school committee voted when we were reducing the budget in the end to take the librarians out of Hale and Burbank, and we put in a paraprofessional to run our library. We were able to find a paraprofessional with good library experience. She's an educated librarian, with a master's degree in library science, and she's done a great job keeping the continuity of the library going, so it's worked well. And I think people are generally pleased with it after some initial fears. So the highlights of the Hale budget are really not very many. There's not many changes in the budget from this year to last year and really over a few years. Just a couple of increases really. Possibility of changing, of getting a classroom set of social studies textbooks. It's a $1,000 increase in that line item and a $1,500 increase in instructional supplies for some 8th grade graphing calculators we need for math for our calculator set that is falling apart. There are items in this budget which aren't increases, but they're in this budget related to the school improvement goals, the calculators themselves. A Chromebook cart, this is carts, it's really a cart. We have a third set of Chromebooks that doesn't have a true cart. It makes it a little bit harder to move them around. Document cameras, as I think Joel spoke about, or Kevin spoke about a little while ago, about which teachers have found very useful for full class presentations. We have some projectors that we'd like to mount in the classrooms to make them a little bit more stable and a little bit more easy to arrange the classroom. And some of the PD money I talked about for teaching our teachers to teach with technology. So that's a pretty good overview of what we're doing at Hale in a relatively short time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why did the music supplies budget go down? It looks like there was a bump last year, but
yeah, we bought an instrument last year.
All right, but yours is compared to the other schools, yours is really, I mean, we're not talking a huge amount, but yours is less.
Yeah.
Except for center. Well, what's going on in Stowe with the music program?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, the Friends of Music has been a big organization in supporting the music program in Stowe. So I think that has had some of it. I mean, I'm not sure that's always,
What would they be donating that you would? I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they donate a lot of things. I mean, philosophically, maybe we should have it arranged slightly differently, where we spend a little bit more money out of the budget to buy basic things, and they would be supplemental and enrichment. I think over the years, some of what you might consider basic things they have bought.
Oh.
And
sheet music,
music stands, things like that.
It'd be great to get some. There's so many kids across the district that took lessons and used the instrument, and their parents had to buy it 1 or 2 or 3 years, and they're sitting in their closets. And it would be great if we could find some way to kind of gather up all those instruments and distribute them.
Mr. Rossley talks to parents, and if you want to sell it through him to somebody coming up, you can do that.
Oh, then I'm going to call him. I got a couple, but I think both. I'm selling those. But I think we could. I mean, that would be, find a way to leverage what you have.
Yep.
But I just want to know why yours was so low.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why. I mean,
because you have a strong external support network.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for George?
Actually, I have a question that's not just for George, but sort, for whatever reason, it popped to mind when we were talking. With the teachers putting so much up on the web, you know, and you're talking about classroom PowerPoint presentations and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Across the district, how is everybody, is that all protected so kids can only get unique password, an account and a password? Because I'm thinking, you know, if teachers are putting stuff up there, at some point, we've invested in what comes down to intellectual property, and we do want to protect it so that it's not just out there on the web for whoever to grab unless we want people to be able to.
We've talked about that a lot, actually, and in our faculty meetings and stuff, and different teachers feel differently about it. Some teachers are happy to collaborate and, you know, make it available.
It is not. The
Things.
simple answer is it's not. It's not locked down.
Actually, on the Google site, some are.
Some are. Some are. It's coming directly.
But the more
from
locked
Google
down they
site.
are, the more.
Yeah, there's a balance between easy access for the kids as opposed to, you know, when you type in.
For the most part,
whatever on your.
The kids' assignments.
Choice.
Oh, yeah. The kids' assignments through Google are locked down because that's through
They
their.
have to log in.
They have to log in.
work on their assignment
Right.
and to see their assignment.
Right.
The Google sites, the teachers can set the options from open to the entire world to have to log in, and it's into, you know, because there's different parts of the site that can be also set up that way. I happened to look at one yesterday. I was looking for something, and I actually got locked out myself. I had to ask permission to get in. So they can, you know, give specific email addresses that they'll allow in, which every student has my NRSD.com address.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basic address they work off of Google. So the different settings, it is an issue, but I think, you know, I think the more open they are, despite the, you know, the risk or the concern you talk about, I think the better off overall our instructional program is.
All right. It's the last piece in terms of a presentation. Citizens' comments is next on the agenda. I hope you feel that you've had ample opportunity to comment as we've gone along. If there are any additional questions or comments, now would be the time. I think I saw him first.
That's
No,
fine.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please.
So where do we stand with the kindergarten full-time?
Excellent question.
So it's in the budget. Nothing's changed from last Tuesday when you were here. And so it's still in the budget, and as I think we discussed at the last meeting, that will be on the agenda on February 11th for more discussion and possible action.
Jerry?
So, just a question of the increase. So, and I talked to you about it, Michael, was 3.72 overall. Each of the towns, it's much larger.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's mathematically driven, but I think for a lot of folks, it would be a good, I mean, it's, to be honest, we were thinking of more, we being Bolton, thinking more of a 3.5% increase, and now we have 4.83%. So just to go over the reason that for each town, it's so much higher than the overall.
Sure. So you're talking about the assessments. So George,
Yeah.
talk about that.
Well, the reason it's higher, the percentage is higher in the town, as you say, it's just mathematically driven. The budget is the budget at $50 million. Approximately about $8.6 million of that is what we call local revenue. So it's the revenue that's determined by the state aid and that type of thing. The balance is assessment. The local revenue is slightly down. It's down by about $63,000. Okay, so that means local revenue is a kind of a funny term, but it's what's always been called. So therefore, but it's revenue. It's revenue generated by the school district. It goes from our investment income, to state aid, to Medicaid revenue, to our revolving funds, the money that we take in for our preschool. All those types of things are in our local revenues. Money we generate before we go to an assessment. It's how much we take in before we go to an assessment. That this year, that doesn't fluctuate as much, because the largest component of that, almost 75% of that probably, is even more, is state aid, and that hasn't moved too much the last few years. So therefore, the entire category, by nature, tends to be level or right around the same amount of money. You know, for FY11, it was 8.619, and this year it's 8.592. So that just shows you over 5 years, very little change. So therefore, the increase in the budget, which we know to be the 4% figure, or about $2 million, that is increased on the assessment. Okay, so therefore, 2 million. It's actually 1.809 million. That's our increase. Okay, 1.809 million is 3.72% of 50 million. But since the assessment portion of the budget only makes up $38 million, we only assessed $38 million of our budget because there's some other offsets too. That, as we said, the increase of 1.8 million is on that 38 million, and it's a higher percentage of 38 million. So that's why the percentage is higher. It's really just a mathematical equation. It's still only a 4% increase in our entire cost, but you're only, when you look at the assessments, you're only looking at a portion of the revenue funding, and that's taking a slightly disproportionate cost of the increase because of the reason they're stated. I mean, I hope that makes sense. It's a little complicated.
It makes sense, it does. It's too bad that we can't get a comparable increase from the other revenue sources. And can you just explain also on that slide that you've got it, what the difference is between the fixed assessment and the variable assessment?
Yeah, the fixed assessment are those numbers you see in the yellow box, and those numbers are the minimum local contribution that's required by the state for each town. It's based on wealth and other things like that. By both our regional agreement and now by state policy, but it was always by this particular regional agreement, when the assessments are taken out, and like I stated, we have to figure out how much money is going to be assessed. In this instance, the total budget is the $50 million, okay? You take away from that what we call offsets, things like special education grants, all those types of things. That gets us down to that $46 million figure you see up there in the top left.
Right.
Then you take away the debt payments that's assessed separately.
Okay.
Then you take away the local revenue I just spoke of, and that gets you to the total amount assessed. In this instance, $37 million. Right there. Okay. So that $37 million generally is percentage portion to each town based on a 5-year rolling population average, what you see. Okay. But before you do that, before you apply the percentage, you apply the fixed numbers. So in other words, if you add up all this money in the yellow box at 24 million, the first 24 million is apportioned that way.
By the rolling average?
No, the first 24 million is apportioned by the lump sum set by the minimum local contribution.
Okay.
Determined by the state.
Determined by the state, right. And that's both by our regional agreement and by state policy, state education policy.
Okay.
All right, so that's where everybody starts. If our budget assessed was only $24,514,000, those would be your assessments right there. But since we assess above minimum local contribution, then the balance, that $13 million balance, that goes by the 5-year rolling average. But the first $24 million is set by the state minimum local contributions.
And is there a place to see how that's calculated? On the
Yes.
The minimum local
Yeah, the
contribution?
minimum local.
It's on the DOE website under Chapter 78.
Okay, thank you.
It's
70A.
70A?
No, on the
78.
No. Sorry. Go to the DOE website under Finance Administration. There are plenty of spreadsheets under the Chapter 70 program. Okay. One of the sidebars is Chapter 70, and it gives you extensive white papers of how it's done. It is the most complicated form you've ever seen in your entire life.
Maybe I won't do that.
I mean, I generally understand the concept of it, but it's like 10-digit fraction type application.
So the general concepts are?
The general concepts, the general concepts are wealth of the community.
Wealth?
Yes. It used to be based all on equalized valuation. It changed about 5 years ago to be 50% equalized valuation, 50% income of the communities.
Okay.
But those are the general concepts, but there are other grandfathered in type aspects of it that impact it.
That's fine.
You know, it's extraordinary. I do not pretend to be
I don't really
expert
even
at
want to do that. To be honest, I mean, the general concept's good.
General concept is wealth.
Right. Okay, and the last question, under Stowe, on this.
I'm sorry, wealth is student population.
Right. Okay, wealth and student. And Stowe gets a SBAB credit,
Yes.
which is?
That's a credit, that they haven't, I believe it's for Hale.
It
It's
is.
the old, Hale was rebuilt in the late 1990s, and the SBAB just happens to pay the district for their reimbursement of bond, and the interest and everything is held by the town of Stowe. So we just credit them for that. That's their money, we're just crediting them.
We're just a pass-through.
The case was for Lancaster too, but they recently restructured and paid off their bond. We used to have a $700,000 payment to Lancaster for the roads in Burbank.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes.
Just one last question.
Well, maybe not.
Hopefully. I'm wondering if you can give an idea how much, there were a lot of veins mentioned of fixed cost, things you guys don't have control over in terms of state mandates or federal, special ed requirements. How much of the budget is that? Are those that amount?
Defer to George on that.
Well, I mean, the state, that's not a question that we can simply, answer. Certain things are mandated and certain things, but how we meet the mandate sometimes changes. And certain things we don't have any control over, such as the retirement to Worcester County
Right.
we talked about.
I would include that in that,
Yeah, that we are
because I
absolutely-
think people, it might be like, whoa, $50 million, and then, but, there's a
like-
lot of that you guys,
Worcester County retirement, school choice, charter school, those are bills we get from the state or state agencies. We cannot do anything about. We have to pay them.
okay, and
Other
you're the
things like
numbers guy, so
special
can you
ed
give me a
also.
guesstimate, like,
Special ed.
So,
in special ed, right?
I mean, I would say we have in terms of, and this is a very rough estimate.
Yeah,
as George
I won't
was
hold you
trying
to it,
say.
but just
I
try to
would
get
say
a
we
feel.
have probably about 5% of this total budget
Okay,
that we have the majority of flexibility to be able to adjust, that we would be, if we didn't fund it, we would be failing an expectation in terms of parents, community, the state, and so forth. So, I mean, that's a real rough guesstimate.
thank you.
The other thing I would urge you to do is to say, wow, $50 million, that's a lot of money. Absolutely it is. However, if you compare us to other comparable school districts, we
That
are,
was my other question I didn't want to ask, because I know we're going over, but what would those school districts be?
well, I mean, we all probably have different opinions on who we would like to compare ourselves with.
Hard
But,
apples to apples, I get that. No, but based on like, regionalization.
But I mean, if you took our local area schools, if you wanted to look at an Acton Boxborough, if you wanted to look at a
Holliston, Hopkinton.
Holliston, Hopkinton, I mean, there's, I don't know, you could pick any communities around that seem kind of comparable. I think you would find that our per pupil cost is
Expenditure.
not at all.
And they're all
out of
online. You can go online and see all of their budget. So I did that last week, and
Thank you.
they're all online, and they don't look the same, which I was talking to these guys about last week.
Right, how do you compare them
It's
based on?
really hard,
Right.
but you can do things like,
So,
just
there's-
online.
There's actually a tool called DART, which everybody has access to.
Dart or dart?
DART, D-A-R-T. I know it's hard to hear, but it's online on I believe it's actually off the finance tab when you go to doe.mass.edu. And it will compare for you. It will give you comparison communities based on a lot of the factors that we were just talking about in terms of we have to do. So it'll give you some comparisons.
Great.
It won't necessarily be the high schools or school districts that we would normally think of as our comp school systems. But based on per pupil, essentially, and all the factors going into that, it says these are your comps. And so then you can play with it a little bit. If you wanted to compare us to your own list of school systems, what would it take to get us there, for example, or whatever your direction
And
is?
so that actually leads me to another question, I'm sorry. The quantitative data that, obviously there's the MCAS stuff, I would argue there's other things that should be measured for excellence in a school system. And so is there anything else at a state level or even that is regional,
This DART tool
Tons of information.
gives you
Great,
every
thank you. Okay.
every comparison data that they collect, and they collect it all. So you can pick any combination of elements. You can look at curriculum, you can look at PD, you can look at athletics, you can look at whatever you want to compare. It will do it all for you.
Thank you.
And we do that frequently with a lot of different topics to just make sure that we're kind of in line.
Right, I'm new to this, so I need to
Sure.
get
The
educated.
the only caveat, I'll just put it out there, just and it's maybe more of a bias, I can't necessarily prove this. Those are all based on the state report that we all compile. We're all trained to be able to do it. However, every school system does it ever so slightly different. So the data is, once you see a huge discrepancy, you really have to tease that out and find out why that is. It may not be
Who would I call? I'm just
that district.
Any other comments, questions?
So, there are various publications, groups, whatever, put out these list of schools of, top 20, whatever. So I'm not even sure where we are in a district, but can you speak to what maybe the top couple of drivers that would get a school district into that, top 20 or top 10? Assuming, it's hard for me to imagine I'm going to say this, but assuming money were no object, what would do you have it? One, two, what do you think you need to get us into that top echelon of schools across the state?
I would say when you look at the top performing school systems across the state, which I consider us a part of, we are the place that we need to grow is the number of offerings we have at our high school, and to be able to give our students a greater breadth of offerings. So it's personnel. That's the biggest thing that will change. As an example, I think it's been talked about at some of our tri-town meetings. We've talked about whether we made the U.S. News World Report's the top 10. It's all about their methodology, and their methodology is different than Newsweek's top 10, which is different than if you go on to Boston.com and you try to find the dream school system that you go on to. And if you go onto that website, for example, and look at what they consider the top 10, I don't think it would be the same definition of what we think is the top 10.
Yeah, no, I understand they all have their different methodology, and I
But
guess
that's really important. It can't be dismissed very quickly, because the U.S. News World Report, for example, there are components in there that you may only hit it once. It's the number of AP offerings that you've increased in a given year. Well, if you're already at a max, and we offer quite a few, if you're already at the max and you're not going to offer anymore, you're not going to be part of that group anymore. Wellesley is not part of that group, for example, this year. I'm not going to say that Wellesley's not a good school system. It's not going to be the only metric I'm going to look at. And I don't think Nashoba should be harmed either, because we're not part of that group. So, you take it and you pat yourself on the back when you get on the list, and it's great. And then you have to move on and look at, a plethora of metrics to be able to say, you're a great school system. But, so.
And in general, I think that rankings can be very dangerous to use as a guide or a path for us to try to follow, because I think that a lot of times the metrics, like he was saying, that they're using aren't necessarily important to you or to me, but that's just the way they do it.
So you're touching on values, so what's value to us may not necessarily be what's value on that list. So what are our values? Produce or have the student, you can finish.
Oh my, we could go on for hours about that. I think we need to wrap up.
Can they be quantified on that DART system? I mean, like
No values.
No.
It-
Values, I mean, if you look at our mission
like
statement,
music
look at
or
our goals.
but like the arts, if that was a
there's-
value to.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a recent push for the arts, and as Michael commented, that is one of the areas that has been identified for us. If we can expand our offerings to, especially in our high school, that we can become a more highly regarded district. But I hate to jump into this huge discussion about our goals. I think it's time to wrap up. Okay, our next steps I don't know, Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we have, our next meeting is February 11th. We need some direction from the school committee as to what follow-ups we need to have. I know it's a lot to maybe decipher today, but maybe individually you could have conversations with Nancy, so you're not deliberative, and then you and I, when we put together the agenda, or call me directly and I'll have that list or whatever.
Okay.
Just so we know if there's any follow-up necessarily. Overall, I would, just summarize that this budget is, as all budgets are that I try to put together, they are interwoven and connected, and so, while we can break them apart to see what the individual school and or district initiative is, there are tentacles to, if you're doing a district initiative, there are tentacles to what's going on into the schools. So, sometimes you're adding costs, but sometimes, because if you take away, for example, the special ed staff member, if we take away the special ed staff member initiative at the elementary, we have to add back in the 2 assistants that we cut to make that happen. So there's just those kinds of things that are interwoven and connected.
We have an advisory meeting with the Bolton Advisory Committee on Tuesday. We
Right.
have a contract negotiation meeting.
Tri-Town on Wednesday.
Tri-Town on Wednesday.
We'll have,
Policy
I'm
on Tuesday. We have a really busy week. Lots of opportunities to touch base on all of these things, and hopefully you feel like plenty of opportunities to touch base with us.
Well, I'll speak for myself. I'm really glad that I came today because it will make, I think, and we have three members from advisory here, and I think it'll make it a more, better conversation on Tuesday. Always, Tri-Town is always fun because then we get to hear really from all of the towns, and like I said, it was a shock, but I understand the budget better. Doesn't mean.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate all of your putting the time in, and it is so helpful to have people know sort of what goes into it. It's great. All right. Anything else?
Thank you all.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. And do we have to vote to adjourn?
We didn't vote to.
You didn't really.
You'll have to vote to.
You have to vote to
Yeah.
adjourn.
It's a workshap.
But it's a workshop, not really. We didn't have an official meeting, so I don't think we have to do that.
Thank you, guys.
Meeting adjourned at 10:12:42. Thank you.